So we'll open the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. Is it on Zoom?
Yes, we are on Zoom.
For the I'm trying to find out.
I think so. I got on.
Oh,
You're on?
The town guest, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me on.
Come
on.
So we have some minutes to go through, I believe, right? Quite a few, right?
4 sets, yeah.
So does anyone have motions for those? Jeff, you can discuss.
Did you need a motion?
I gave Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff has them. Then he can.
Company then? Yeah. That's a company.
Yeah.
So Jeff, if you have the motions, you can do the minutes. I think there's 4 sets.
You want me to read them all together or one at a time?
Or can you do one?
I'll do them one at a time.
You get to do one at a time.
Okay.
Not because of anything to do with us, but if somebody in the, in the future picks that one, you know. You don't go through the whole thing again.
Something.
Yeah. Put right on, record right at 7 on this name secretary. So everyone, we're just gonna go through the approving the minutes from 4/1, 4/15, 4/28, and 5/2, 4 sets of minutes.
Okay, I move that the CPC vote to approve the minutes of 4/1/25.
Second,
A motion is second, further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. And Jonathan, I just want to say you can read, he can just read the minutes that, so Jane, you'll explain that to you, right? Just want to make sure. So you can, yeah.
I've got them. Yep.
I should point that out first, but okay. Thanks. Go ahead, Jeff, on this one.
We good with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I move that the CPC vote to approve the minutes of 4/15/25.
second,
Motion is second, further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed. Yeah, next one.
Yeah, nobody. I move that the CPC vote to approve the minutes of 4/28/25.
second,
Motion second, thanks, Warren. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
aye,
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries.
I move that the CPC vote to approve the minutes of 5/2/25.
second,
Motion second, further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
aye,
Opposed. Motion carries. Is that it? That's it for me.
So we're on Zoom right now.
Yep. Yep.
It's not turned on.
I just wanted to see who else was.
Yep.
With 6 sets here.
I know it's a pain, but I did go over, I did review them, so.
No, you guys did a good one. I just needed the signature.
I just have one.
I will be handing out a signature sheet. It is not for you to sign for the petition. It's only for me, so that when I do my minutes, I get your name correctly spelled and address, okay? You're not signing a petition. So everyone's aware. Those will approve at another meeting.
Oh, I just didn't sign them.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking at the page.
Yep.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
And next item on the agenda is the reorganization with our liaisons. We also have an opportunity after elections, we do a reorganization of the commission too, like other boards. So it's been, I just want to say I've had a wonderful 2 years since Jeff was elected, I think is when I came on board as the chair. I've learned a lot. And it's been challenging, especially last year being chair. But it's been an experience as a volunteer, and I suggest anyone too that is interested in volunteer that they do so. And being chair definitely ups the game a little bit. You can be much more prepared when you arrive. And I've tried to do my best, given with my work and everything like that. But that said, now that we're moving forward here, I'd like to nominate Warren, who's been chair, I don't know how many times in the 3 years, but I'd like to make a nomination for Warren as to take over as chair.
Actually, Danielle, can you do
That's actually, that's true. I usually ask for nominations for chair, so I'll do that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a nomination for the position of chair?
It is, I'll nominate Warren Pierce. Need a second?
I'll second it.
All right,
Um,
you
And
can do
then
the vote though.
and I can never remember, is this roll call or is this just
No, just.
okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, he said he's in a banquet, but he could jump on.
Okay, I just wanted to double check.
You're right, because if he was on, we would have had the roll call.
Yep.
Good catch. Got it.
Yeah, he said he was gonna jump on for the 8 o'clock.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, I will take it from here.
Take it-
We have to look
take
for
from there,
nominations
Mr.
for
Chair.
vice chair. Actually, I'd like to, unless you have an interest in it there.
I'm gonna nominate Jeff because he expressed an
Thank you, Dave.
interest, so I think it gives you a good opportunity to try that out. So nominate Jeff for
Okay,
vice chair.
and second,
I'll second it.
okay. And, any other nominations? Hearing none, close nominations. All in favor of Jeff Clifton for vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Clerk. Is that next thing? And, you okay being clerk?
I would accept the nomination.
Okay, would somebody nominate?
Second.
Okay.
Good, give you all the paperwork.
Good with that, though. Okay, all in favor of, John for clerks, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So who seconded? Jeff?
I did,
You did.
yeah.
Okay,
Then we have assignments here, right?
yeah,
So especially the Ryan ones, I don't know, you want to just go down the list there
How
or?
did that one slip through?
yeah.
What happened there?
Well, he kind of bolted on us.
Yeah, he
You know,
was,
without a lot
last
of,
time he was still a member.
yeah. All right, I'll take, I'll take select board, that's, usually the chair and the select board. And, unless somebody else wants it, I'll do conservation as well.
Yeah, you were on before, so. I mean,
Dave, you want to go to the ZBA? I'll take it if you don't want it.
yeah, I like the ZBA.
Sorry.
Everyone's okay with that?
The Housing Partnership Committee is empty.
Yeah, we didn't put somebody on that last time, was there an issue with that?
I don't think it's meeting. I think it's defunct at this point.
Yeah, okay, I think that was his decision last time as well, so.
Okay.
MAPC. Dave, you were on it before, I don't know if you wanna stay.
I attend all those, so it's an easy one for anyone who takes that one. You can certainly help,
proxy.
but I do go through all.
Thanks, Danielle. Sure, I'll take that one.
Okay, well, you were already there.
Thanks, Danielle.
Historic District Commission,
So this was a max or
Max is on it, so
Without him to,
We'll have to have a discussion with him about
Yeah,
this.
so we'll have to
We can
just,
also revisit this if we have.
yeah,
These,
so grab these two here and just throw them
leave them the
aside.
way they are, you know.
Yeah.
FinCom, Finance Committee.
Dave, you good with that, or you wanna?
I'll take it.
I'll take it.
Yeah, Warren,
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take fine.
Okay.
FinCom,
Yeah.
Okay.
With Brian
Gotta
gone.
go in and fight for our money. Oh, LUC,
I'm okay taking the vacancy with Ryan off of it.
pardon?
I'm okay taking that one. Ryan's not on it.
You?
I can do that one.
Ryan's not around anymore, so John Shores.
Jonathan. Everyone. School, Joe, we still school?
Jeff, you
Sure, yep.
Okay, recreation goes right along with LUC, so you wanna have that too, John?
Sure.
There you go.
This one's a no-brainer for
Wastewater
you.
advisory,
Huh?
wastewater advisory.
Yeah, you know that. Commission on Disabilities.
Stands to reason, I could take that one too.
All right, good.
Thanks.
And then the EDC.
We'll stay there, yep.
That's a thankless job. They don't, you have
This
no.
is all a thankless job.
You have no
Warren.
resources, they give you no money, nothing to work with, and say, we'll make the town grow, and you're like, you know, give me a budget, give me something to work with.
Yeah,
Well, thanks for doing it anyway, so. I just would like to take a minute too and say, Dave, you did a great job as chairman. I appreciated your depth of knowledge and also your willingness to do some research to find out the most you can about something before you made a decision. You're very good in that way, so I want to thank you for,
Thanks, Warren.
as a board member
Appreciate it.
for the town, so.
Thank you.
yeah, Dave, I definitely enjoyed your humor.
Trying to line
As
it up.
chair.
Be careful when you assign a class clown to chair. You know? Your own peril.
No, you did a great job, Dave. I was very impressed. Okay, so we're not gonna do the 7:30 one.
Do we have to continue them or vote to continue or?
At the time. we'll
Oh,
need
I
to
see.
vote.
Yeah, 7:30.
I'm not sure why the screen has.
Yeah.
Oh,
ZBA, we have a ZBA.
Oh, yeah, so,
That is all she had so far.
Okay. Anybody read through it? I mean,
I did.
I read through it, yeah.
Did you, Jeff? Have it? Road? Right.
Yes.
Crestwood.
What is
11,
it? Crestwood.
11 Crestwood.
Crestwood.
Crestwood, yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of innocuous, but a little bit of it is that you're supposed to only use 300 or something square feet of office and everything. But they state in this that they're gonna store all the equipment on site,
Yeah,
you know, at the location as
Right.
well as at the office for it. So
yeah, then,
my question is, does storing all the, does storing all the equipment figure into the, does it fit into the full clause of the bylaw? If you have a full garage full of the equipment, or
I'm not sure what storage factors in. It probably depends on the amount of space,
yeah,
the percentage of the home that's used that way.
yeah, so I guess I would just probably, the only question I would come up with is, how much of the space is being used for storage of equipment, and is it inside storage, outside storage?
and how do you regulate that too? Is,
Well, it's kind of a neat little business, it's, for you guys out there, they're gonna do, things for parties like bounce houses and things like that. And they'll rent them out, so obviously they take them to the client's house, so they're not doing it at their house. So they fit within the regulations at that particular point, so.
did it say, I thought it said pickups, but maybe I'm wrong. I know that he said there'd be deliveries too.
Yeah,
So is that like their
you know, when
Like a rental, so people are
Yeah,
coming and grabbing
yeah.
stuff in and out type of thing?
Yeah,
Well,
by
they're not
appointment
supposed-
only, daily
Online.
pickups and deliveries and then some on the weekends.
online sales and stuff. I
Yeah, but
mean,
I don't think they're supposed to have customers coming to the house.
oh, okay, is that
I
what you
think
said?
That's in the bylaw.
Doesn't say that.
Yeah.
They said that it will be delivered to them.
Yeah, that's what I said. They
Yeah.
can't have them come to the house if they read the bylaw. So that, but they can, deliver them to they can deliver them to the place and then pick them up, but they can't have customers coming to the house. Under the bylaw.
Obviously, it's not our say.
Well, it's not. We
See,
just-
I know you know that,
we just-
but
You just make a recommendation.
I feel like though, if you have a business that requires, that much storage and to deliver, that you really, as a neighbor, say if it was my next door neighbor, I'd rather have, go get a storage garage in one of the many places in North Reading. And I know it's an extra 150, 200, whatever dollars a month, but that is kind of like, you're in a residential area and you're trying to run like a business and just run it out of the storage facility, make all your deliveries and
That's a good.
you know what I mean, but have your office at home, I'm not trying to knock anybody but I just feel like. It kind of opens up a door, like if everybody in the residence is running some sort of distribution business out of their. House that's pretty physical, like those are big objects and stuff that are getting picked up and stuff, me personally, I want them to have success, but just maybe. Change things around, have a storage facility, run it out of that, or the way you run your materials out of it, run out of that.
Yeah, I don't know what the
No.
difference would be between customers coming to pick stuff up and drop it off, and then your own car going in and out, doing the picking deliveries. However, if they were at a storage facility, yeah, because that's.
I'm just not seeing it, it's just,
Yeah.
in many businesses, I think do that out of those different salespeople, or whatever, use those storage facilities for. Appliances and bigger things.
So.
So what do you think our comment should be? For CPC,
So, I'm sorry, Crestwood,
it's just a regular residential,
Yeah, it's just a regular road.
okay,
Up
on
Chestnut
Main Street or something like that.
Not the Chestnut Street, but Crestwood.
oh, okay, I got you, okay. Because there was no map or anything attached, so I'm like, trying.
Yeah.
Suitable for it, no, it doesn't, I mean, just. If, oh yeah, I see where that is, okay, Marshall, so it's down the back over
Yeah.
that. over
You
there.
get on Marshall Street, you go off to the right a little bit, and up the hill.
Right. Was there any, opposition to with the neighbors or anything, do we know?
I
We
think
don't
we'll
know
find
that.
out the meeting, so
Which-
meetings in next, where's
we
the
just-
meeting?
Okay, that's the
It's
recommendation.
the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay,
It's
Yeah.
Thursday.
right, gotcha.
Is there a delineation between 11 Crestwood and 11B Crestwood as far as the ownership? It looks like there's another
Unit,
unit.
So,
I'm not gonna look at that.
so 11 Crestwood, they have like a two-car garage.
maybe it's
It's
an
like a
apartment
second
now or
floor.
whatever, it was ADU. Whatever, maybe.
I don't think it's a question of confining space, they could put it in their basement or anything, but
Sure,
but
The coming to go.
It was more the regulations, stating how much space they could dedicate to a home occupation business as opposed to, what they're actually doing, so.
Danielle.
I'm sorry,
Good.
I don't see any problem with the business itself, okay? That's, I guess, what I would say, but they should just make sure it fits within the four corners of the regulation.
Then Danielle, with what Jonathan pointed out, the B, is it made me think of ADUs now, are they getting different addresses, like a A designation or B, is that a?
The status of that is, it was definitely talked about, it was talked about to have the assessor's office assign it, a letter that would clearly
Oh,
call it
sure.
out as like X or something like that,
Got
that
it.
call it out as an ADU, so that everybody would know that, and that
Yeah.
they're doing it.
Yeah.
I can check on the status of that, I'm actually not sure what's been put in
Yeah.
place yet.
Because to that point, we are supposed to, as part of the law, the Affordable Homes Act is track how many were creating or have been created or.
Yeah, do you know if it wanted to know how many we already have?
I think they can provide that, Deb can provide that, she's given us, you know, what.
The ones that we know about it.
Yeah, but I don't know, you know, did the state wanna know the baseline right now, like,
I don't think so. I think they're only asking us to track new ones coming in. Oh,
so we can throw those in to get credit. It's been a raging success, it's 150.
I was curious because I'm not familiar with the address. I'm just, looking it
Yeah.
up to see if we can figure out what it is. I will ask the assessor's office what's being done now for.
It's an interesting question, so.
I only asked because when I typed in the address to Google Maps, it said you want B.
Right.
They're in the same place, it's cool.
Interesting.
Those ADUs are gonna be fun.
So you all set Danielle? You
Yes.
need- Okay.
It's 6 minutes to the year goal.
Yeah,
And then we'll have to wait for 8, right?
yeah.
I can do that if you want.
Did you say,
I could do updates if
yeah,
you like.
or do you want to, Danielle, do updates?
Yeah, we can do that.
Because even if we jump back into 7:30.
Yeah, we have plenty of time.
Yeah.
You never know, you never know. That other discussion could have gone on for a while, so. You had to give it enough time. To do so. Sure, Danielle, if you would please.
The select board's informational hearings on the warrant, it is now scheduled for June 2nd. It was originally supposed to be May 19th, but, it's been scheduled for June 2nd. I'll plan to be there. Just wanted to let you know that that was happening. The floodplain updated FEMA maps, the hard copy has actually arrived today. We have them in the office. We also received, information from FEMA that they will be hosting, a virtual open house. Just to have residents in our community, but in every community that has had an updated map, which is quite a few of them, to just allow residents to directly ask questions of FEMA. So that will be happening on June 4th, from 4 to 7 on Zoom. It went out on Town News. It was posted today. So anyone who's interested in registering for that, can do that. We're also I'm working with Lydia Eldridge, the conservation commissioner, or the conservation agent, who's also our floodplain administrator, on writing letters to people who we think previously were not in the floodplain, but now are, and vice versa. Our GIS manager was able to run quite a bit of information for us. So we are working on different versions of letters to send to people, just advising them of the new maps and making sure they're aware that the maps are suggesting that they probably are in a flood zone if they were not before. So that is in process now. We had talked about doing a community meeting for the Central Street sidewalk project, and we talked about doing it potentially tonight, but I did hear from the Safe Routes to School program, which is the grant that we're hoping to get to fund that project, that the town is not going to be eligible until 2026 for that grant because there has to be a period of time that the town is partnering with one of the schools, and the Batchelder is a partner with Safe Routes to School, but they will not have been for long enough by the time the fall application round opens. So we'll be looking to do that in 26. But in the meantime, I've been working with the town engineer and I've been in communication with the Safe Routes to School program. And I reached out to Millennium Engineering, who did our previous, the preliminary design for us. And everyone thinks it's still a good idea to hold a meeting. It's just that with so many things coming up at town meeting, I had spoken with David and thought that tonight might not be the night. So I just wanted to run a few more dates by you. We were thinking possibly either July 1st or 15th, August 5th or 19th, or September 16th or 30th. I don't know I know summer dates can be tricky because people do go away. I don't know if we have an opinion about whether we would want to do it at one of the July meetings, one of the August meetings. June is really out because the town engineer is getting married and is gonna be out for a while, during June. September, we do have a fifth Tuesday, and it's September 30th, so that could be. September 16th meeting. September 2nd, I didn't want to do because it's right after the.
I would say that, July 1st is no good for me.
Yeah, okay, let's cross that one off. It's probably no good for a few of us.
What were the other September dates you said? I apologize.
September 16th or possibly the 30th. We don't have a meeting scheduled on the 30th, so it might be a good opportunity to just do this one thing. that night.
August one would be okay.
Okay, August 5th or 19th.
The 5th, yeah, but
Not the 19th. Okay. Okay, all right, and what do we think about the possible September dates, 16 or possibly 30? It might be a little early.
16, sounds good, right?
oh, I don't care, any day, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will coordinate with town engineer and also the folks from the neighborhood who've been in contact and see what might work best.
Now, we're talking about the plan, the Millennium only did the plan up to Spruce Road, right?
Right.
From Park Street to Spruce Road,
Yeah.
that's the only section.
Yeah, and that's probably all we'd be able to get funded with this grant.
Yeah. I've had a few people who live just a little further up say, can you bring in another 150 feet? And, you know, wow.
Maybe if we asked for another grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, the engineer from Millennium, Brian, had said he even is wondering if, $1.5 million would still do it because cost of prison. So we'll see.
Yeah.
They,
Well, there's some challenges on that side of the road too, speed and I think,
yes, a lot of people.
yeah, that's gonna be a little bit. People aren't always happy about taking the really nice trees down, but, as long as you're willing to sacrifice a little bit for safety, I mean, I think it's worth it, because it adds, so, all those roads are all the way up to, you now have a walking access. Unrestricted walking access to the park, which is huge, so. It's a good plan.
It's 7:30 now. I don't know if you'd like to just. That was most of what I had anyway. I'm sorry, I keep looking.
That's okay, we,
Yeah, no, I mean,
Just-
oh, that's it. Yeah, so we're gonna just
Okay.
continue, we'll continue.
yeah, we're gonna, we,
Do you have a
do you have a
motion?
motion here over there to continue, but we must have, I think there's one in here, yeah. Motion to continue,
Yeah, 249.
yes,
Yeah. I move that the CPC vote to continue the public hearing for 249 Haverhill Street, 7 Charles Street, 30 and 31 Amber Road until Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025.
Second.
okay, the motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Let me get your 130 no opposed. Mr. Murphy's not here.
Oh, did they say that? Oh. What time do we want to continue that hearing to? Do we want to say 7:30?
Yeah, but we gave it some room last time because we expected the
Can do it earlier,
conversation.
right?
Huh?
Can do it earlier, right?
We could do it earlier, but the reason we gave it an hour at this time from 7:30 to 8:30 is because there may be some discussion going on. So we wanted to make sure there was enough time to get the whole discussion in. So that's why we gave it an hour. So if we could want to still do that, we would want to do it again from 7:30 to 8:30 or something like that.
7:30.
All right.
You can always do it earlier and then start.
Yeah, you can start, right?
7:30 then?
Yeah.
Okay.
used up all our filler articles. on the agenda. Unfortunately, we have to wait for the times because it's an advertised time. So we have to wait until we get
Once
to it.
again, I'm sending this around. It is not a petition you're signing. It is only for me. For my minutes. It's just so I get your name correctly on my minutes. Thank you. Good, how are you?
Sure. Oh, great. Yeah,
That's what West Saturday.
yeah.
It's kind of around now.
She got the job website.
Okay, yeah.
We went through
A couple misfires.
everything we could, because of publicly,
Had a few more people than I needed. because
that was nice for Dave.
Can we
Okay, that was okay.
How much does your crew change? Same thing, guys.
I have, 160 people. So,
Do they all like it, so they kind of stick with it?
well, they have, I have, like 10. that's
Yeah.
included, and each one has a crew, but they trade crews,
Right,
depending on, where they're close to, okay, I live closer to this one, but you this show with it.
right,
They
right.
all live over here, but yeah, they all work together.
Inspector's pretty tight, I mean, it's a pretty dangerous thing.
It is a small community.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody all the
Yeah,
time.
everyone needs to know what they're doing.
Yeah,
They're rookies.
yeah,
If there's
yeah,
a
well,
rookie.
we do get them, but.
Yeah, we have to.
We assign somebody to shadow.
Yeah.
Their lives. And we have a new license, so we get to go out on their own without another license for at least a couple per show. We don't, after they get there. It's free. So then they make sure, it's safe, you're right, it's. Easy. to
Oh,
do something
goodness.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not forgiving, you only get to make one mistake.
That's true. Ordinance, yeah.
Well, I was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some, in April, we had our annual meeting training.
Yeah.
And they only have to go every 3 years, because they come every year. That's a whole day event, you don't take care of.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I.
Give me one person. Sorry.
that's fine.
But they,
It's exciting too.
They
It's
work
actually a
hard.
fun job.
they work hard, and they do it, they really, and they're all type A's. So they don't want me to tell them what to do, just give me my product and leave me alone.
It's cool.
Some of them are incredibly talented. Just, I don't care what you give them, they'll make something out of it. I got this one little girl, she's 23 years old. She's a finale. So they'll let her resign and put all the finale stuff and let her resign for some wire. She's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like an art, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Art.
Well, she also is reliable. She can draw
Yeah.
any cartoon character.
Yeah.
She can just freehand
It's so cool.
anything. She has that talent. That's unbelievable. But she wants to do all
John, you know Warren does fireworks, right?
I didn't know that.
This
I don't know if I
puts on the big show.
I think he plays all over. So.
Very cool. So he's a busy man.
Yeah,
Starting
so
out.
area, so Wilmington, Lawrence, Reading, Wakefield, Winchester, we do the whole coast, we do, Rye Beach, Hampton Beach.
You do the vineyard on the water, right?
No,
Oak Bluffs.
no, we do them in August.
That's all August. Oh, yeah, right, because that's when near when we go, right? You're right.
Lake show, yeah,
That's
end of season show.
That's it. It'll be.
Yeah, it's during the Wizards.
Okay.
Oh, those just imagine, we also shoot, New Hampshire and Rhode Island, we get something like Rhode Island, do a lot of shows in Connecticut.
So
Last
busy
Saturday,
season's coming.
yeah, well, last Saturday I shot Western, and I had two of my Connecticut, I was in Connecticut.
Okay, good.
Southwoods. Make sure.
It's exciting to fly over the top.
And what they do is they
At
have
my last job, those smaller airplanes, Cape Air, based out of Vance. Every year they do something right there. It's right next to the airport, actually, Lewis Bay, that area. And we take off and we extend a little bit to get some altitude, then turns left right over the top of all of it. You know, we get up to 1,000 feet or so.
Yeah, when we do.
It's a different view that and then like, it's like. Approach them.
Yeah.
We asked them like how many coming. Because it's all like one way, like mine, like they don't think that way, but a lot of them, maybe it's a lot of materials. Practicing that, you get like 500, right? You know, so we're trying to create value in the company. So we do it.
Graduation.
So that, well, yeah, so not so much the landing, well, the owners, but the one, yeah.
Homecoming.
Whatever's paying, that's what they can.
You approach the,
Yeah. Customers that bring, what's that? Brings us closer to private. Get on bottom line, kids are all up. You know, and they look at the street, you go, 8%, and really 22%. That's year after year. When I put that in a portfolio, I'm sure you will. Oh, yeah.
oh, wow.
Whatever the agreement is, whatever they think is
Not a
necessary.
small number.
So we're working on it, you know, we put a lot of structure in place, we've got a company to like attract, stuff like that. Those types of things. Well, I mean,
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, you do it to make a buck, right?
It also gives you passion.
We got paid 10,000 next, you know.
And,
Still deep down to it, so I mean.
That's a lot, that's what you gotta be charging quite a bit.
those days are gone. Oh, yeah, I got it. Oh,
Yeah.
It's in the there, like this, like that, and this and that. And like 5 years, it's a 5-year plan. So there's enough value in 5 years to throw. Everybody wants to know. You have a system in place.
Yeah.
And then they look at this, now you see a system in place and. Yeah, all that's, yeah, and they want to see those big numbers, they want to see the big ticket, we've all been. The money that continues to present and where it's coming. So we're coming from the largest firms.
So
that are using the company. Take care of the problem. they're constantly there, like one building that's.
I like your mom's inspections and combine them.
It just looks better. It's just like a better position. Yeah, so that's what we're just gonna face the sun. I mean, we've been approached by. It's no matter. Unless you're a contractor, they can like everyone. Okay. It's the only way you can do it. Like, and I was talking to some guys today, they're like, oh, we don't.
So it posted it, and then you can send
Oh, wait a minute, they're all set.
Yeah.
I said,
by.
you guys, so you used to do a kitchen, right?
Even an excavation contract.
Come on, got the place.
Yeah.
Get all the pipes out, bring the gas pipe, the first tanks. Then I gotta come back out, and I gotta rough it all. Fire extenders, bring the gas pipe over here. Some people are building, then I gotta come back, you feel like tile work is done. So, you know, I might be getting it's value, right? But I gotta go there like 4 times, maybe 5, because you come to the toilet, and then, so you're not, so. Like the truck's moving in and out. Every time my truck moves, it costs me money. You know what I'm. I'm grateful for these things, we know we were, so we know what we have to do, so we have to get it off like that.
There's a lot of wetlands, that's some areas.
I mean, I live in your house.
Fantastic.
20 grand.
But I'm surrounded by
That's what we want to do.
wetlands and Eisenhower Park.
Well, and that's what we do, that's what we're. It's like suicide, it's like.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're breaking into it. And that's a process, right? So we're
I'm
processing.
saying they're gonna build around my house.
So when private equity comes in, okay, what's your assets, what's your rate, how you, and, you know, how's your HR, how is your, you know, who's doing this and books and your attorneys. It's like a giant checklist, right? And all we do is just check these boxes and make work one thing at a time. Yeah.
Wow.
Because we know companies that have sold off to private equity and they've done really well. Because they have all, they look like.
It's not as hard, it's not as hard and fast.
But it's like they schedule it like, oh my God, you know, oh, wait. Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. It's like, we just hired, we have one office staff in the Philippines. She's great. She's great. $5 an hour.
It's like rather.
And that's like, that's so, because we were very reluctant to do that, but we have our office staff here. And we hired this person to do all. We have it to the research once we're done.
Say no.
That was an identifiable.
Yeah, this time of year, the week's in, I can say one name, so
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
Figure out how to.
There's another development kind of down the hill a little bit, so it's starting. The winter time, I get to. This time of year, the trees are full.
Yeah, and just that. But it's with that data, so we have. Yes, perfect. We're massive partner. Check. Yeah. Mitsubishi, Samsung, Aya, Fujitsu, it comes along. It's all same crowd. It's all made the same. Well, actually, a lot of it, like the Samsung, a lot of it's like Malaysia. Mitsu, a lot of it's Japan. But that's even a big one. That's why all these other companies are spreading them all over the place because they're doing well. Because Mitsu just can't. You know, because the management really great.
Certified officer.
Now,
And then they're.
Page Road.
We do everything. We're actually thinking about bringing it. I will push it out. We looked at how it's money. Applying like a guy who's semi-retired, likes to work 20, 30 hours a week, pay him like $100. Yeah, as needed, and just, you know, like, because it gives us some flexibility. Well, we do is when we go in here, you know, just do typically like I'll go in for like, say, probably fall from the shower. Right, so I go in and look at it, in my discovery phase, looking for a balance, isolated. So like, that's what we go in. Yeah, because you're there, right? So our average, like, we're looking at like our average tickets, like, fall back rate, but that's all we coming hard,
Just like the road station.
so we lay off 3 employees because of it. We weren't seeing. So that's process, right? I still never had to do it again.
A couple of years ago, I saw.
I just wanted to.
It was, I saw one just the other day, and project ran it, road, with rain and country, it's almost drying. And Germany's there. I don't know, it's real or not.
Basically, analysis on every. So we have an absolute rate that average.
It lasts forever.
Reduce money, you know, how much rate was turned, what leads were turned, how that developed, you know, and. Yeah, like, adjusting.
Yeah.
Like, give you opportunity.
It's the same with,
Everything.
tarmac.
And we give you this to go out.
A lot of them have the concrete, and they're just.
I don't want you to come back with just this.
Especially down south.
Identify, because we're finding out that the homeowners just don't want to appreciate that. So we're gonna say something wrong. Give it a phone call, too.
There's certainly enough rubber left. If you look at runways that haven't been scraped in a while, so they'll have to scrape them every once in a while. The first third of the runway is considered a push down zone, and it's, you can just tire after tire, there's all leader behind it, and everything. Yeah, you probably. That's right. Yeah, you think, but it sticks pretty good. I mean, it's going from 0 to 150 miles an hour, get that touchdown, it's just, you know, you're taking layers.
Well, it doesn't take much.
Yeah.
So then we also partnered with, partnered with like companies that do like service metals and stuff. And, we partnered with them, we partnered with store companies that are checking, right? So you just, because that's what they. But that's like, all the things like, you're gonna make yourself, you're gonna put yourself in confidence, and you're gonna make yourself available as a company. Other companies, we had a guy in Florida.
Same thing, I mean, runways are, to, you know, keep the water from.
We're working on that.
When you get layers of rubber in there, you know, I last job, the airplane didn't have any skid brakes. So you could tell, landing on the brake, you know, I pretty quick. This Airbus that I'm in. Skid brakes.
That's what we do, we grab the coattails, be successful.
Plus it weighs on, that's what we do, 1,000 pounds. Last airplane weighed 7,000 pounds.
I've used those for guys.
Yeah, you want to meet it, they just.
You know, there's less of a people wondering about miracle of flight and more people asking.
We partnered really small. We partnered with small companies. And have good relationships. Smaller companies. It gives us like a better opportunity.
Yeah. they got together and they make.
So like a private equity, said, and want us to increase the value of the company by, $2 million. Right, okay. Where we got to, I'm gonna buy. I'm gonna increase the value like that. It's all buy, like, you know, like the shop, or whatever, I think you increase the value, get it to that spot. You know, so.
It's like people are hard, you have to have this behind you to say it. It's big.
It's hard work.
The letters, so it's hard.
Yeah.
I've had flight attendants come up in the cockpit, it's like, all right, clear this up.
Yeah, no.
For my son, so I really, you should say, oh, he's 38.
Oh, crazy.
We should still go back. It's,
Negative number, it's tough.
There must be.
Okay, identified.
You know, it's great. The goal is at the end for it to be uneventful.
Exactly.
If you've got an event, something bad, right? So,
No, it isn't, and that's where you kind of.
people talk about it. If people watch on a daily basis, like, you think,
It sucks, it's like,
you're like, well, it's not, that's
never
never
done
done
in my life.
pay us.
Dave has never
They pay us
done
for
it.
it.
I just go without, as long as I have my.
The goal is to not have stuff
But
break,
that's not business
but,
work. No, yeah, you can say that, but it just isn't. You know,
I enjoy it. I liked my last job. 7,000 hunter. It's a lot more fun. Did you ever see the TV show Wayne?
you gotta be that.
He used the Hackett brothers on the top. One of our airplanes had a paper share.
Shareholders.
So that the cat here. But it's fun to watch now. You know, stock footage, like, I mean,
It's like,
you know, when I used to get watch it, it's like, good. But now I get.
I want to get it, take you with my fireworks company.
Okay.
So I just.
oh, yeah.
Oh, cool. So I.
Yeah.
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 Oh, really?
It's just. I was in that back there the other day, and I was in a brownstone.
Oh, okay. That'll be, I'll tell my kids, that'll be cool. Like, I don't think I did all the explosions on that web.
Like sometimes, you know.
It's good, man. So what is it?
I'm tired. And my boss is too engaged, so, you know what I mean? I gotta be a little energy.
On fire, so I called out.
He's a regular guy.
You're gonna have to shoot.
Matter what.
I saw you didn't get a phone call the other night.
Stand up on the other side.
Here? Over at the public area. You didn't get the shit on board there?
I mean, there's only so many times you have to open the car, right?
He ordered it after, I just had some regular. Yeah, we're going through those.
Yesterday, we had golf.
Oh, okay.
Out in, 503. We had an interview, and then we brought.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Is there
When I
holes
asked
every time?
Yeah. You put the 12 in once, there's a matter of putting it
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we brought it to the chamber. We had, I think we had 75.
Okay.
And, we had a fundraiser after the apothecary. Did a signing off. Everyone had free lunch. It was good.
Handles everything.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
There's some flood watch. There's all these, the call is done from 6 to 6 in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the documents- the documents go back to the-
Yeah.
So sometimes you can't get it.
Okay.
So, no matter what you do out there, it's just a lot.
That's sad.
Now they're gonna have.
So you use like day sleeping.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's spread I work is.
Sometimes you get-
I know, that's just.
But so is that a burden or is that an asset?
It's a burden.
Yeah, you couldn't even.
And the end of it, think about that.
He knows.
It's a fire.
Okay.
So we had to blow up.
Oh, okay.
And then most interesting.
Yeah, you don't buy it.
That's right. So we had to.
People signed off.
And they said all the flashing all around, which is going above it.
Yeah.
But then every now and then we just, you know, there's a lot of. Going a little bit, it's all part of the course. So we go to court, you know, there's. Got a baby compressor, she's working tank, it's tank all charged up. And they're ready to do the thing. They hit the button, we hit the button, we make the explosion, we make the engage, looks like a big explosion. Oh. Once you're done, you have to move, and you're like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
No fun anymore.
Yeah. No, my wife can't watch airplane movies with me, same reason. It's-
Yeah, I think just watch those. Or shows. She can't.
Yeah. My oldest is super into them and likes to talk to me about them.
Yeah.
And my wife, Matt, is like, you guys can't talk about this. Freaking people out.
I believe that.
Yeah, I find it fascinating because you learn from it.
Yeah.
What not to do.
A lot of times they do find mistakes, so.
8 o'clock.
1 minute,
Apple time is 8 o'clock.
okay, yes, ma'am. Yes, it is,
Can't
exactly,
get away with anything.
right on the button here.
No. No.
Okay, being at 8 o'clock, I'm gonna open the continued public hearing for the 3A citizens petition. Let me see. Okay, do you, Danielle, do we have any updates on, that, other than what we've had before, so
Not since our last.
I think where we were when we left off, because correct me if I'm wrong, is we were just taking comments on the different sections of the citizens petition. So, Mr. Illyria, did you want to make a quick presentation on your citizens petition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations on being re-elevated again, I guess.
Yeah.
My condolences too, and
Yeah.
congratulations to John, an election, Jeff. Back here anyway, that's great. First of all, Mr. Chairman, I had the town administrator forward to all the planning commission members, select board members, finance committee members, correspondence from both State Representative Jones and State Senator Tar regarding, 3A and the impact. And so I hope you got that, and if you did get it, if it could be made part of the minutes of the hearing, I think that would be appropriate to just for informational purposes. So I did well job to do it.
That was sent out, yes.
So that was since the last.
Right,
Right, not in our meeting. I just forwarded the email, blind copy to everyone.
Okay. Right. And then, so
It
it
was
was,
Thursday, I think, was it Thursday?
right, I talked with both Representative Jones and Senator Tar in relation to just updating everybody. And then also in addition to that, the town administrator also included a listing of all federal grants and state grants that we have right now. And we had a previous discussion in the select board meeting when the federal grant money was threatening to be cut, is being cut, the impact that's going to have on federal money flowing to the state, to the towns. And the board asked for from him a listing of current grants that we have. And again, our potential stuff. And as you are well aware, since the last meeting, the governor has suspended all hiring in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, even though the economy is pretty good and their budget forecasts are pretty good. But in anticipation of the grant funding from the federal government drying up, he's freezing all hiring in the state government to ensure that there'll be some resources available to fill in the gaps as the federal funding dries up. And then directly goes to the cities and towns. And as you're well aware, the legislature in their infinite wisdom, the recent actions have determined that most of this grant funding is going to be discretionary in nature, and putting on a little addendum on each one. The communities must be in compliance with state law, specifically the state law in order to even apply for them. So they're getting more stringent in relation to availability of funds. In this particular action that doesn't go before town meeting is going to have a direct impact on the town's ability to apply for, never mind just apply and then get demerits for not being in compliance, but apply for. So it's still in a state of flux. Things are still changing in relation to eligibility for things, and it's not changing for the better. Additionally, if you're interested, I have a copy of citizens petitions that were submitted last October, just before town meeting, to the town clerk's office from residents at Martin's Landing expressing their concerns. There were 9 bullet points. And I think it's actually most of this you've heard over the years, over the last year or so. But I'd be happy to submit this with all the names and the signatures. There's over 200 signatures, 225 or more signatures from residents of Martin's Landing expressing their specific concerns. And then it's important to highlight that most of the concerns, if not all of the concerns that were expressed at that time, we now have answers to. Last October, we didn't have all the answers. So there's been substantial changes since last October to now that has given us substantially more information to make a well-informed decision, as all of you have stated. So if you'd like, I'll just hand this to me now. And have that.
Sure, I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did you get that list from?
Town clerk's office.
Okay, so that's available to the public.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wondering.
So I just thought it was important that the issues that were raised by the residents there, and again, it wasn't just Martin's Landing that had concerns. It was across the community, no doubt about it. And there's been substantial amount of information provided to us now in clarity in relation to the constitutionality of the act that is now law. And the need to come into compliance. So, at some point, if you want to go through those, we'll go through it. The answer to the bullet points, if you find that it will be informationally helpful to you to come to a conclusion as a commission as to whether to support or not support the citizens petition. And again, I applaud the planning commission's efforts over the last 2 months in particular, 2 to 3 months, to come to some sort of a conclusion and give the taxpayers and town people who are going to participate in town meeting the opportunity to make a better informed decision. I'm hopeful that your conclusion will be that we should move forward with your support and recommendation, favorable recommendation from the citizens petitions. So that public can make a well-informed decision, because we do have more information than we'd like more. And I appreciate the effort you put in relation to the alternatives that you were looking at. You know, we took it very seriously and made every effort to maybe come up with an alternative, and hope you can land on it.
Mr. Chair, if I could. I have a question for you, Mr. O'Leary. Have you met with the people at Martin's Landing and their concerns?
I have talked with a few, no, I haven't met over there, no, I've not.
Thank you.
I wasn't aware that there was any formal opportunity to get together and nobody organized anything or invited it.
Pat, I'm gonna go through with the board here then.
Okay, I just want to be
Okay.
right up there.
That's okay. Was there? I know you said there was the bullet point, was anything that was significant that was in question? I mean, and who provided the answers for all those, the town council?
No, I mean, I have some answers that are based upon council opinions previous.
Yeah, because we've heard a few different things from town council as it's gone on, they've addressed the issues in bulk sometimes and sometimes individually.
Right, and again, a lot of it, if you want, I'll just run through them quickly.
Okay, that's fine.
The first one was, we believe that PLC 48, section 3A is unconstitutional under home rule amendment. That was it, number one. Response certainly would be 3A has been ruled constitutional by the Supreme Judicial Court.
Right, that's right.
So it's law.
That should be common knowledge at this point.
So that was it. We believe that the proposed zoning is detrimental to our neighborhood. There's gonna be no change to the neighborhood.
Right.
I'll explain that. So what this proposal does, and again, this isn't my proposal, this was developed with the planning commission, with the planner, and they did an excellent job of putting this together. Again, I didn't reinvent the wheel, you know, I didn't do all the hard work yet. Danielle did it in consultation with town council and with the commission. So bringing North Reading into compliance would say will have no impact whatsoever on Martin's Landing or the neighborhood. Unlike some of the other towns, North Reading can come into compliance basically on paper. There's nothing else is happening with the neighborhood. There's no more building that's going to take place there. There's nothing else that can be built. No more units. Units can't be subdivided. All those sorts of things. We believe we believe that the change is an undue burden on our community, draining already limited public resources and infrastructure. It's going to maintain status quo. There's not going to be one more unit built. The proposal that will be before town meeting will include a cap on the number of units that are currently there. Not one more unit, not another family, not another.
That's what they said about Edgewood. That they weren't gonna increase any public issues.
What we're saying is this coming into compliance, Mr. Chairman, with 3A is gonna put additional burden, undue burden on our community and drain already limited resources. We're not gonna put any more people here. We're not gonna put any more units here. Nothing. No impact. It's status quo.
Excuse me, Warren, if I could, can I get a copy of that?
Copy what? Of the petition? Sure.
No,
These are my own notes. But
Yeah.
each one of those pages are the
do you
same.
have a copy of what you're reading right now?
No, these are my own
This is the
notes.
copy, but we just get back.
These are my own notes.
Thank you.
But all of those are all the same. They were just petitions circulated around, so everybody can have a copy as to what the issues are, what the 9 issues are. So again, we changed undue burden. There's no change. There's no more units. There's no more additional housing.
Well, I'm sorry, don't mean to interrupt you, but
Okay,
if in the case of Martin's Landing, we did get more, if they were gonna build more, that's not a bad That's not bad for the town at all. It's a good,
If they're gonna build more, what, more units?
Yeah, that's-
yeah, if they, I mean, right now it's capped, so I don't think they can, because of the
So they
site.
can, and also the number of structures and the layout and the setbacks and all the other things, there's no room for another building.
Right,
You know, and again, the proposed citizens petition under 3A, if they want to exercise their rights under 3A, and I don't have to explain to you that there's a whole host of other rights that those property owners have under all sorts of zoning that's overlaid over there, that they, you know, they want to bulldoze and build some commercial industrial site, they could, but all the owners have to agree to do it. It's up to the owners, not the town, to determine what goes there. So in relation to the issues that were raised, there's no change. There's no more additional units. There's no additional burden on the infrastructure. There's no more additional burden on the police, fire, or anybody else, or the schools. No more than what's already there. If someone who happens to be over 55 is ready to raise their grandchildren, well, they have every right to bring their grandchildren to live there and set up the school. That doesn't change a thing. That's just.
If I could, so I think and I'm reading these here, these are the concerns, and this was their petition. This is a protest, a petition for reinstatement. At the end of this, it says, therefore, we undersign the landowners hereby protested the proposed zoning change.
Which was the one last October.
But that's what they're proposing. They're protesting the zoning change. So,
For those reasons.
well, no, it doesn't say for all those reasons. Those are the issues that they had. But if, therefore, we undersign landowners hereby protested the proposed zoning change.
I didn't.
So regardless of what's written above that, I get it. Those are concerns they had. It's the zoning change that's being proposed.
And that's why they have concerns about it, and that's why they're opposed to it at the time. And those are all legitimate concerns and legitimate questions that may not have been satisfactorily answered or answered satisfactorily to their liking. So I didn't make this up. This is-
Well, it just clearly says, that's the last thing it says here. Proposed zoning change.
Which is what we were talking about, what was it?
Right, so not so, even like the 9 articles that you have above that.
I don't have anything, these are
No,
not mine.
I understand that,
Well,
but
you
that's
think
what
mine.
you're going through and that's what you're trying to describe.
The
Even though you have
changes.
those 9 articles, ultimately, those were concerns, yes. But the proposed zoning change is what this petition was about.
For the above stated reasons. And you asked what to put them in.
Therefore,
And,
gonna
you know,
sign
you're
that
getting
hereby
semantics here. I
propose
didn't
that-
put the
Okay, we can go
petition
back and
together.
forth about the language.
No,
That's
again,
fine,
I
we'll
didn't
figure it
put
out,
the
we'll get
petition
through it.
together.
Yep, thank you.
You know, I didn't put the petition together, I just putting it forth for your consideration, and again, and we could just tick right down here and see what's changed, what do we know, what's different, you know, and help inform the public to make informed decisions. We believe that lacks the additional police fire resources necessary to service the additional population. We believe that North Reading cannot sustain the probable impact on the school system. North Reading's water and septic infrastructure is already strained. What else we have here? North Reading streets and infrastructure and the geographic peculiarities of its location cannot sustain the additional people. North Reading is already overdeveloped, housing is too dense, such as the proposed is a threat to our housing values and public safety. All the issues that they've raised, the answer is it's status quo. Nothing is going to change. There are going to be no more units. There's going to be no more housing. There's going to be no more demand than was already there. There's going to be no more impact on the infrastructure. There's going to be no more impact on traffic.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you think that an overlay is attainable?
Is it attainable? What do you mean? At town meeting?
Do you think an overlay at this property is attainable?
Through the proposed citizens petition?
The question is, do you believe that an overlay at Martin's Landing is attainable?
I guess I don't understand exactly what you mean. So if
Okay.
it could be a little clearer for me, I'll be happy to answer.
well, first of all, if I may, Martin's Landing is an overlay already.
Right.
Because that property over there is zoned IO, which is industrial office. We've never meant to have housing on it. That's the true underlying zoning for that property over there is IO, industrial office. And yet we have housing there. Why? Residential overlay district, which we brought to town meeting and town meeting voted to approve it, which is why we were able to build residential over there. Okay.
Answer your question, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I think that the concern with the overlay part of it is population. And can they add to the existing the units? Because they're doing. Well, hang on, Warren, hang on a second. When KP Law was in here, I had asked them that question. And they could not identify and answer that clearly. I think I asked them that twice in past meetings, and we talked about that. And he said that he couldn't. We asked about the overlay. Is it possible for the people who have the property now or a developer to come in and potentially add more residents because of the overlay? And his answer was very vague, actually, and it was in his opinion. And he couldn't nail that down with any clarity. So I think that part of it, when I look through this, is a part that when they talk about adding like kids to the school system and things like that, can an overlay actually happen? Will it happen? They don't know. They say, well, if we have the space to do it and allows us the 7x10 bedroom and the windows are there, can you add that extra bedroom? Can you turn a 1 bedroom into a 2? We've talked about this before. And the answer is you can. You can do that. It's happening.
I don't, you know, when I talk to, well, I've talked to town council a number of times in depth on this whole thing. And in order for the building inspector would have to get, you'd have to get an approval from the building inspector, which you were never gonna get. And also, in order to change that whole project over there, every single person that lives there would have to be willing to make that change.
Mr. Chairman, if I have, this is correspondence that was given to the town administrator, it was shared with the planning commission. It was dated September 27th, 2024. And question number 10. If MBTA zoning were approved, what steps would be required to construct additional units at Martin's Landing, and what steps would be required to divide existing units so as to create additional units?
Well, not so much the units themselves, not to divide the units to create additional units. To create additional bedrooms within the units.
Part of what was raised last fall was there was information provided to people that the potential that some developer could come in there, buy some of those units and subdivide and make 2 out of 1. You know. So,
Yeah, but I've never heard that.
oh, I have. And so anyway, so the question as was posed here. What steps would be required to construct additional units at Martin's Landing? What steps would be required to divide existing units so as to create additional units?
Now, who asked that question?
These questions came from a series of your meetings,
Yeah.
our meetings, public meetings.
Yeah, I believe when that question came up, that was a very vague question. It was not direct.
I'm just telling you what the question.
I know that, but I'm saying, I think that when we had that
What's-
meeting, I think I was sitting right up
So
there.
the-
when that
that's about-
actual
it
question
says the
came up.
steps required to construct additional units at Martin's Landing would be determined by the master deed and condominium bylaws. MBTA zoning has no effect on and cannot change that process. In addition, construction of additional units must comply with zoning bylaws and other applicable state and local regulations. Okay. And again, the proposed citizens petition is capping the number of units to where they are right now between Martin's Landing.
Basically,
Well,
what-
that wasn't in question, I don't think that.
Yeah,
the
well,
number
based
of
on
units-
the
That's what I'm saying. So in order to address those concerns, I included an amendment.
And one of the questions that I asked specifically is, can the zoning law go in and change this so those kinds of things could happen? He said, no. He said, Icahn said, no. The master deed, that in the contract that you all signed when you bought the properties gave you very specific things that you could not do. And so you cannot do that unless, like I said, there'd have to be a meeting of every single person over there. They'd all have to agree, it's got nothing to do with the state. This means you guys are in control of the whole process. And it can't change unless you vote to change it. So the state is not gonna come in, they cannot come in and violate your contracts. The state cannot come in and violate your contracts. So I don't know who's saying that you can't.
To that point, question 11 says, does state law specifically override the HOA for properties falling within the town's overlay when, if passed by the town? That's what you want, specifically, when the HOA within the overlay restricts resident age to 55 and over, and conversely, state law prohibits state age restriction. Does the state law override the HOA? Or does the HOA trump state law in this scenario? Please provide. The answer to all three questions above is no.
Yeah.
For reasons stated above in other questions here. To summarize, a new zoning bylaw does not apply to existing uses of property, such as the existing age-restricted housing at Martin's Landing. Further, zoning bylaws do not alter or eliminate existing private contractual agreements and interest in property such as an HOA. They simply define what use property owners may make of their property going forward. So, and then he provided several excerpts from legal cases outlining how and why that.
And who was that? That was KP?
It's KP.
Okay,
And again, this was provided.
do they also represent cities and towns that are not for this?
They did. I don't know about that.
Thank you.
They did, and it, and none of those, and I don't think I have that particular one. Again, there were probably 4 iterations of different sets of questions. I just have to bring this one with me. But in that particular case, if you look at what their response was, and again, it was provided to the Community Planning Commission last September, October, time to town meeting. They, like all of the other communities that were questioning the legality of they were not questioning the legality of the law. Most of the suits were whether or not the state agency did the appropriate thing as far as promulgating the rules and regulations. They did not question the legality of the law. And the Supreme Court, again, answered that very quickly and then said, okay, state agency, you didn't do the right job, so you have to promulgate them appropriately, have the public hearings and all the rest. And that's exactly what he said would probably happen. And he was spot on. But anyway, the bottom line is, I just thought it was important for you to recognize and accept the fact that there was a petition put forth by the residents of Martin Landing, and many of the concerns that were expressed by the residents of Martin Landing were expressed by other members of this community. I mean, last June, when this was first proposed, the primary concern of most people, other than the government overreach, was, how is this going to impact the over 55 community over here that bought into this condominium association? And that's not right if it undoes those things. And I was of that same mindset. I never did, and never would support or sponsor any article that would undo the over 55 restriction at Martin's Landing, because that's not right. And in fact, as it turns out, this provision, this law doesn't do that. Doesn't do that. And as we got more information, sought counsel's opinions, and looked into it, that was totally dispelled, and it can't be done. The only ones who can change the over 55 at Martin's Landing or any other establishment like that are the owners of the properties themselves. That was not permitted as an over 55 community. That was put in as an over 55 community by the property owner. Decided to develop and put those restrictions in and come into an agreement with everybody that was buying in there, that this is what it's going to be. Not the town, not the state. And this provision, this law does not overrule that. If it did, I would not be sitting here saying, I'm in support of this. I would be looking for another location where these people would not be impacted. The fact is, this law does not do that. These people are not adversely impacted. These people have absolute right and control over what happens in that community. Not the town of North Reading, not the state of Massachusetts, and the law isn't designed or even laid out to do that. So unfortunately, there was some misinformation provided to people and misled them to believe that that's the case. I hope they know now that it is not the case. But That being said, to address that concern, the amendment that we put in last October is being included in the citizens petition to allow by right the owners put in the over 55 restriction by right. And it is not in conflict with how the law is written. The law says that the town cannot put any restrictions on that by age. It doesn't prevent the owners of the property of proposing any type of development with an age restriction on it.
So why would you submit an amendment of that stature if it didn't matter?
To give it clarity and give a certain level of comfort to the people over at Martin's Landing. That's all,
And
that's
the
all.
55 plus, was that an opinion from KP Law that you read?
What's that? Yes.
It was opinion, okay.
No, it's actually one of the, Q&As here, let's see. Right here, it is specifically if an amendment were, I believe it's here. State law, it's a state law that requires the authority to create a district for multifamily residential by right zoning, everyday zoning 3A, override 55 age restriction. No. Let me just see what should be. Okay, this is number 8. Does the zoning bylaw pending before the October 7th town meeting override the age 55 plus age restriction at Martin's Landing, given the law's language, in the zoning permits housing that quote shall be without age restrictions and shall be suitable for families with children. That's what the quote, what the law says. The answer is no. For the reasons set forth for affecting the zoning bylaws. The following language shall be without age restrictions and shall be suitable for families with children refers to require the zoning ordinance or bylaw that the town must adopt, not the housing itself. In other words, a zoning bylaw that allows for multifamily housing meeting the requirements of 3A cannot limit such housing to certain age groups, or impose other restrictions on development that would discourage or prevent the development of multifamily housing suitable for families with children. The owner of any land within that district, however, may decide on its own to construct multifamily housing and impose such occupancy limitations. That's how the restrictions of Martin's Landing were imposed when it was built. So again, 3A doesn't allow the town to put those restrictions on. It does not restrict the owners of the property from doing it themselves. It's the owners of the property that decides what they want to do with it. What this law prevents is the town of North Reading requiring that. So it's somewhat redundant, to your point. And it's redundant because people were fed false information. And so it being redundant does it no harm. It doesn't do anything good other than clarifying for those residents that by right, as owners, they can, on their own, with their own choice, decide to retain their 55 and older restriction or change it, because they're the owners. And it's not in conflict with the law. Quite the contrary, it just clarifies, by right, the owners of the property can do what's already been done over there and secure their interests. So that's why I included it, just for clarity, so that everybody out there understands they're good, they're safe, and it's in their total control, nobody else's, not the state's, not the town of North Reading. So that's why it's.
So I have a question. What about a developer?
The developer will probably not come in and buy every one of those.
No, I understand that. So my concern too was not just Martin's Landing. My concern too was the existing property at Edgewood. So Edgewood is not built to the max height requirements, and there are, you can look all over the internet, there are places that are being bought by developers and being emptied out and then reconstructed, not externally. As far as the footprint goes, they haven't changed the footprint, but they've changed the interior of that and added also to, because they can go to the height requirement. So that's another thing I think that that community is concerned with, because they to add and to do that, if you think a developer won't do it and there's money in it and they can make money, they're gonna do it.
Mhm.
They're gonna do it. Oh, and before I forget too, we also, so in your petition, it was 100 and 104. And Lowell Road.
Whatever was in the previous warrant. So
Okay,
it's identical.
and so my question also to, and this is going a little side from that, because I was just thinking of this. The state's looking for requirement 55 acres. That's what they're looking for. We know Edgewood is 47 point something. And Martin's Landing is 32 point something. And we're under the 3A law, the zoning only asks for a minimum of 55 acres, but yet we have a total of. God, I didn't really do the math, but it's a lot more than that, so there is availability for other land to be developed, and developers, if they find the land, they will do it. They will do it, they have the money, this. You were gonna say something?
Oh, I'll wait to finish.
So that's a concern too, that I was kind of kicking around a little bit too, but I just,
And it's a good concern and a legitimate concern, and it's been addressed through the citizens petition with the Second Amendment. So if then someone wants to buy Edgewood, because that's owned by one entity right now.
Right.
And wants to exercise their rights under 3A, under the overlay district. They're free to do so, right? And they will have certain rights if this prevails and passes. However, the proposed amendment, which again, we wanted to have offered last October, but it wasn't approved, caps the number of units in this overlay district, regardless of the number of acreage and the buildings and all the rest, at the current level. So if they want to bulldoze that and build another 406 units, and there's no change in Martin's Landing at 502, knock yourself out. If it makes economic sense, sure, they can go ahead and do that, but they can't put one more unit in there under this zoning, under this overlay district, and under this law. So
even
it's better, and
though,
again,
even
to
though the
address
town
those
would be
concerns.
forfeiting, even though the town would be forfeiting more than 55 acres.
And even though the town is providing more acreage, and even though the town is, already.
So
in
you're
compliance,
saying that-
only even
You're
though the
saying
town-
they won't develop the empty land is what you're saying.
Even,
No empty land.
this isn't,
Well-
so wait a minute, even though,
There is no empty land.
let me finish, even though all that's required of the 3A in the town of North Reading, with that acreage and all the rest, is 750 units. You already have 908. The proposed amendment caps it at 908. So if they think it's economically feasible to buy that Edgewood
Yeah.
and bulldoze it, and
Well,
put up
that-
another
no, I
406
don't-
units, regardless of the
I
amount of
know,
land they.
I know you say bulldoze it, that's,
Oh, okay, or, I don't care,
That's
got
not
it
gonna happen,
renovated,
but-
they're still only gonna get 406 units. Under the proposed proposal, which is going before town meeting, it has that one little sentence that's gonna cap it at 906 or 908 units. That's what's there, no more. So that the concerns, some of us were listening. And those that were listening are saying, listen, we need to come into compliance and we need to make this work. The major concerns across the community, again, were the 55 and older, 55 and older, and the number of units and the impact on our community.
Thank you, Warren.
Okay.
So we're gonna, we took care of it.
I know you love me, man.
So we took care of it.
Your passion is shows, okay, and I appreciate it. But for the record, we did get 4 communications to the planning board from residents, and all 4 of them asked us to please pass this. Go ahead.
My question actually is just to clarify from Jeff. The vacant lot here, are you just taking the difference between what we're offering and what they're requiring and saying the rest is vacant? Because I think, I think what Warren was saying, we're offering more than what
Is required.
3A is required, but we're not offering vacant land. We're offering already developed land.
Yes.
So it's not, taking that, our big number and their small number. It doesn't give you vacant land.
Okay, Danielle, you have a
So
comment?
so the only reason,
Just to clarify, the district is 79 acres, but much of that is not usable. The state, through their compliance model, only allows us to count land that is considered developable, could already be developed, but they made us take out any flood zone area. They made us severely restrict any wetland area. And so after you do that on those two properties, what's built is more or less what can be built. So we get credit for 79 acres, but they have a number that's actually developable and it's basically what's developed.
What is that number?
Sure, I can find it.
79.
That's 79.
No,
Develop.
she's
Developable.
coming over the difference. 79 is what is there, but what's developable is smaller.
So,
Just
in,
barely
in, in,
55 acres,
May I
50
please?
acres.
in Warren, really, the concern with that part of it was that, you know, you guys always say, oh, they'll just move the goalposts. They just move the goalposts. It's a state. That's what they do. So that was my concern with that one, Warren.
Okay, well, let me just point one thing out to you. The way it sits right now, and I'll just, and if this was something they were gonna do, they could do it the way it sits right now. And we don't, this article would be nothing, if this was something they planned on doing or wanted to do. And I would quickly point out that the AUD bylaw,
More of a
the
significant.
ADU bylaw passed without without a whimper, and it covered the entire town here. And the state just mandated, it, just dumped us on and said, no, you got this ADU bylaw, that's it. And nobody really said much of a word, you know, about it, and that affects everybody in the town. So, they're not likely to do something like that, like what they're talking about. They can't violate the contracts that these people have. They can't do it, so. Now Edgewood, Steve's right, if they decided to take it over and tear it all down, they end up, they can't, with that amendment that he has, they can't build in a single more, you have to put the exact same number back that they tear down.
All less.
So, all less, or less, that would be the case. So as soon as I'm done with the board here, as soon as, are you all?
No, that was the, just.
Jeff, are you all set? Can I move on to the people now?
If you have an accent to it.
Yeah, I think I've made my position, especially in the last few weeks and, hopefully, you know, clear, so. I don't wanna belabor and repeat myself.
Yeah.
So, I think I'm on record what my position is. Thanks.
Yeah, I just don't want to I want to give everybody a chance, you know, I mean, you know, this is a big decision. But it really isn't as big, if this were to pass. Within 3 or 4 months, nobody will even remember it, because it will have no impact on any of the property that's built. None, so. All right, I open to the public, please address your question to the chair. State your name and address before you ask your question. Pat.
Pat Fillmore, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace. I have a couple of questions. Statements too. You talk about grants. North Reading is now considered an affluent society, an affluent town. So to get grants, usually it goes to the people that are lower on the poll. So to say that we're gonna get 9 million grants, you know that's not true. Okay, yes, we do get several, but in this bill, there's only 4, I think, that it restricts us from getting. But again, North Reading is a fairly affluent town. Second thing, my big concern is the people voted for you folks, okay? Last October, they overwhelmingly rejected this bill. Okay, and there's a law, a state law that says no town meeting article can be brought up if it gets shot down for 2 years. And now all of a sudden, we're gonna go against the people and change the article and change the wording of this article and bring it back and say, okay, we'll spend another 3 hours discussing this, and you know, it's crazy. It really is. The people voted against it. You people are supposed to represent the town, which sometimes I wonder, but how can you bring this back? If there's a state law that says you can't do it for 2 years?
Well, that's conditional, first of all, if the planning board wants to vote to,
Okay, all right. But again, you know, I look at this paper that was passed out tonight. And talking to the ethics board and that commission, it's like, it's crazy. To have this petition be brought up, to have this voted on again. It really is. I
There are a
don't
number of us-
understand.
there are a number of other communities who also resisted this until after the court case was settled and they realized that this was a law, that it was gonna go forward, and then they changed it to, and they voted to comply.
But Warren,
So,
there's still towns, Wilmington voted against it, Middleton voted against it. So who are all these people that are in favor of it? I mean, I don't know, and you know, you talk about Edgewood, that they can't put any more units in there, any more properties, can't they go up?
well, they
You know,
can't.
if
put
you
it-
look at
if-
Reading-
If the number of units in this zone.
And that's
is
the number of apartments, and they
Is-
can't go up and,
capped. As Steve's, as his amendment says, they can go up where they want, but they can't put any more apartments in. What are they gonna do, put a deck up there or something? I mean,
yeah, they can put it upstairs and downstairs in their apartments and have 20 kids coming into each apartment. You know, if my mother went to go live in one of those apartments, there would have been my mother and father and 9 kids.
when the, when,
You know?
I knew, I grew up with a family of
Yeah,
9
you did
kids.
too, so if you lived in an apartment, all they had to do is put another floor on
Yeah.
and you could go in there. And
The article, the amendment that he has caps the number of units that they can have, so,
but
that's,
not the
that,
number of people, so
well,
they could put it upstairs on
they,
some
I
of these
don't know,
apartments.
I don't know that what if the building inspector would put up with that, if somebody called up and said there are 9 people living next door, and he says that's a 1-bedroom apartment, I think somebody would go say something to them. I think there's a limit. Also, when Edgewood was coming in, and, we listened to all of the discussion, and we were like, no, you're gonna put 35, 40 kids into the school. And I'm like,
No, they told us at town meeting there would only be 1 or 2, because I asked that question back
Yeah,
then.
and so we only got, what, 11 or something?
17.
Huh?
It was a lot, I mean,
15,
with
17.
Edgewood, there was a lot more than that. 17.
Yeah, but after that, all those units and only 15 kids, I mean, we thought we were gonna get bombed in the school, and it turns out that their calculations were pretty much right on the money. So, I mean,
Having worked in the school, I don't see that as true, because I dealt with a lot of those kids. And
did more than 50 of
Frankie
them?
Rosillo, that was one of the kids. And let me tell you, some of these kids, the cops were down there every day of the week. The cops are still down there every day of the week. So you're gonna build more floors, open up, put
They
stairs.
will
so
not
that
be
you
able to
can-
build more floors because they'll be capped,
The units will be capped.
the
But
number.
again, what I'm saying is, you could put a set of stairs in there.
Not without permission from the owner of the property. I
And
mean,
if
I
the
just
owner of the
don't,
property is gonna get more money because he's selling a bigger place that takes in more kids, do you think he's not gonna?
I think that there's a lot of hyperbole here, there's a lot of what ifs and what ifs. I
Just,
mean,
yes,
you
there's
can
a lot
what if-
a lot of hyperbole there when they're telling about, Martin's Landing and how they understand now that all the questions that they had are now being answered, the same questions that were answered back in October that they voted against.
Well, I don't know, we had no idea what was gonna happen with that Milton court case at the time. And that was significant to many of the other communities, because once that made it through, and they realized that's how it was gonna go, the number of communities just acquiesced after that.
I just think it's a disgrace that you're going against the people's wish from October 2024. They voted unanimously that it wasn't
This
unanimous.
is not the first time that something's gotten brought back up after.
Not
finding out
not
more
before 2
information.
years,
Huh?
not before 2 years.
It's up to them.
Well, the question becomes, if you know that in 2 years, it's probably gonna get passed, why would you give up all of the grants for that 2 years?
How many
But-
grants are out?
Well,
Lauren,
I don't, you know,
How
one of the
many
people that
grants are out
I
there
was
that we
hoping
are-
would show up here is somebody from the FinCom. Because the FinCom has spoken to me and said that they have encouraged me as much as possible to try to get this through, because they think that there's a lot of money available that we're gonna be and it's the FinCom, it's not me. So we depend on them to provide us with this information.
I just don't see, I don't see the grants coming to North Reading. I really don't, because again, North Reading is a pretty affluent town.
My understanding, we
Not on
already
my
have
part,
some
but-
we've been approved for that are contingent upon this, so.
Say what?
My understanding is we have a number of grants we already been approved for that are contingent upon us applying.
Do you have a list of those, Warren?
Yeah,
don't,
I find that hard to believe.
FinCom, well,
That you're gonna apply for a grant and they're gonna say, well, if you pass the MBTA, we'll give you this grant.
last time
There's
what
a
they,
community college, there's about $840,000 currently approved right now that are somewhat, some of them are at risk if we're not into compliance, and some of them, the administration is holding off until the town meeting vote to spend the money, for fear that if we spend the money before July, and we're not in compliance, we may have to pay it back, and we don't have it in the budget to pay it back.
So the $840,000 that you're talking about,
Right, that's right now in the books, plus there's another $990,000.
so
Right now,
is this
some of the state funding right now that we've got
$840,000 been
approved.
talked about at the select board meetings?
Yeah, not too long ago, right? Yeah, and not too distant past, right,
$840,000.
correct. There's a couple of.
That was
there's
talked
like
about at
five-
select board
There's like $500 and some odd $1,000 for bridges, there's like $55,000 for ADA compliance at the senior center, there's maybe $110,000 for technology for website updates. Things of that, it all amounts to $840,000. And again, because we are in. We're in interim compliance, so we got those grants. There's another list that was provided by the town administrator to your board that had lists $2.1+ million in federal grants and $990,000 of recurring grants that we get that could be at risk. And again, we had
Was that a sewer grant though?
which one?
Was there $800,000 for sewer grant?
No,
No.
no sewer money, nope. Nope. But there's an awful lot of money that's just been approved by the state, digital fund, compliance with state law for water infrastructure, which we always need. It needs to be addressed, it needs to be done. And a lot of those projects are done with state funding, state grant funding. If the state grant funding was not available, we would still have to do the work and would have to be within the confines of Proposition 2.5 and raise and appropriate money. And that's gonna be at the expense of programming, public safety, schools. We need to get certain things we need to do. We need to take care of our facilities. We need to take care of our infrastructure.
You know what
We
I find
rely on the
interesting?
state grants.
I find interesting,
Okay,
I just find this interesting.
Mhm.
We're talking about taking care of all of those things fiscally, right? And now you're dumping it on the MBTA like that's the
I'm
big
not
bad
dumping
bully.
it on the MBTA
You know what?
at
You wait
all.
a second, hang on a second.
Not at all.
Oh, yeah, you are, because what you're doing is you're taking that $800,000 and you're throwing it out there like, oh my God, we're not gonna get it.
No, we
We
have
were
it.
fit- We have it. They have $800,000 is in hand,
Because of our interim compliance.
and it has nothing to do with sewer grant,
Correct. No sewer,
anywhere in the town.
no sewer. No kind of water. No, the only sewer money that's available is federal funding for the downtown sewer project.
We got a grant from sewer. I'm almost positive.
I'm just saying,
Half of
the
that-
only money that I'm aware of right now
800,000 is from the sewer.
is from federal funding for the downtown sewer project that we're leveraging right now.
That's federal.
That's federal, it's not state. That's sewer. We don't have a sewer project.
Okay, so that grant money has nothing to do with the MBTA and the state.
Correct.
Okay,
So that came from Congressman Walton and
Okay.
Senator Warren.
Okay.
There's a hand up on the Zoom.
But it's just in response to, the people took a vote last October. Again, you know as well as I do, Pat, you do too, you've been around long enough. Issues do come back within the 2-year timeframe is directly related to the zoning bylaws, and it can't come back without the favorable recommendation from the planning commission. It can come back 6 months later, 6 weeks later, 6 days later, if the planning commission determines that it's in the town's best interest to do so. So it can come back, and it's rests with this body. As far as the people having spoken, I mean, this has been an issue now for the last couple of years. And we just had an election. And part of the election, and a big part of the election, is, you know, the fiscal problems that we're facing here, and major portion of that, not being in compliance with this law, but you have to comply with it. It doesn't go away, you have to comply with it. We're gonna have to do these things anyway, and it's gonna have a direct impact on our current operating budget and our current operations and our current program. And again, that's across municipal, schools, everything. And it's like, why are we doing this? And the people spoke
Yes,
about 3 weeks ago, and 62% of them are not buying into this program. 62% of them put this gentleman right over here. And what was the only issue having to do with this election? This right here,
well, I think there are a lot
So-
more than that, but that's,
that's the major issue.
that, I think.
The same thing, you know, Mr. Griffin ran a great campaign, and he's a great public servant. But 63% of the people chose somebody else,
Okay,
and it's fiscal responsibility, giving people credit that they're smart enough to look at the information that's provided to them, and there's been new information provided, and they deserve an opportunity to decide whether they want to comply or not. And that was being denied them.
okay.
That was being denied them. And the
Yeah.
only reason that we're talking about this, the only reason we're talking about it is because it's a citizen petition. The board that I sit on didn't come up with any other solution. This board didn't have time or didn't come up with a solution either. The only reason this is here was out of my frustration. And again, I didn't write this. Danielle did a fabulous job. This was a perfect solution to come into compliance and have no impact.
And have no impact.
That have no impact. And there was a lot of misinformation, and now it's been corrected. And people were listening. And you know what? The election results, the people voted.
I
And they heard it.
understand.
They heard it, and they're making choices here. And one of the choices that they want is they want the opportunity to come into compliance or not, and they were being denied that. And they don't appreciate that. So there's nothing wrong with bringing this forward, and there's nothing wrong if they decide not to comply. But at least they should have had a choice.
But how can
And the
you,
only reason they have a choice is because this is here. And again, things have changed. A lot more information is here. We have people whose positions have evolved. Well, congratulations, really. I appreciate your diligence and your willingness to listen and evaluate and say, you're right, you know, we have to do it.
I've personally been overwhelmed with people telling me to get this done, you know, that they're ready to go
Okay,
vote
the
at
people have
town
spoken.
meeting and make sure it goes. So, I mean, and, you know, we really, you can't let, I would never even, no matter what the situation was, let one person decide that the town doesn't get a second look at this.
oh, I'm not, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it usually.
You're saying they should get a second look at this.
I'm saying, first of all, we're saying that the people, the public, they don't know what they're doing because we just hired, well, we just elected smart, that's pretty much what you said.
No.
People got elected that are smart people and they can inform the people.
People got elected and reflected, people reflect
Reading the
their,
lines here.
quite the difference. Quite different. Quite
People that were at town meeting last October knew what they were voting on.
Oh, I don't
They
think so.
knew.
That
Well,
was brand new. We didn't even know all of the, we didn't even know all the ramifications
okay,
of
all
that
right,
at the
I'm gonna
time.
let it go, because I just find, I totally disagree. But guys are gonna say what you wanna say, and, I mean, some people saying, I didn't know what I was voting on, or, you know.
And Mr. Chairman, I don't know why anybody would think that it is the wrong decision. Provide the town meeting the opportunity to come into compliance with this law and take advantage of grant opportunities as much or as little as it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because even if it's a little, it
See,
has a
here's the
significant
thing
impact
about
on our
this,
budget.
though. Here's the thing about this. If you come into compliance and you discover that there is something in this law that's not good, you can do what some of the other towns have done, and that is sue the state. But in that particular case, instead of the state suing you, you're in the driver's seat. Whereas if you don't comply and the state sues you, you gotta respond. And one of the big costs, you can talk about grants or no grants, but I would like to see how much money we've spent on attorneys already to go down, and it's just, the money just gets ridiculous after a while. hang on a minute, I just said you had a question, did you?
Oh, no, I'm all set now.
Okay, all right, yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening, this is Matthew, Adams Street. So I think to your point, and also Mr. O'Leary's point, that you are correct, that there is new information, that came out. However, the problem is that new information continues to come out. There was just an amendment that was, put forward by, I think it was Senator Donner, I'm probably saying the name wrong, where they're actually trying to get the adjacent communities exempt from this. My husband will tell you that I am one of those people who, it takes me forever to make a decision, but usually I'm pretty well informed. I'd love this to be win-win for the whole town where we get the grants, but maybe we don't have to comply because, I don't think that sort of being forced into something like this, just like this is necessarily the best thing. But having said that, if there's some way to either, there isn't an option to file for an exemption. Also, if we postpone this until October, even though we would not be in compliance for 3 months, it does give us more time to see if any of these amendments would come to fruition. I do feel also, I mean, I do think that you're correct that this is probably the best option for it, right? If we, again, are forced to do it. But I kind of just wish that more information would come, because towns are voting it down around us. I think the more that this is around, more towns are becoming aware of what is going on. There's a whole lot of building that has happened in Wilmington. There's a whole lot of buildings happened in Reading. And it's sort of changing the dynamic. And we have a budget issue now. We have a financial issue now. We don't want it to get worse. And I do hope that, you know, we are correct that this is all the case and we're not going to have to add any more units or anything. But if it does, the financial constraints that we're in now could get worse. So again, if it was me, I'd postpone it again. I'm not on the board, so I don't get to make that decision, but as more amendments are being filed, and again, Senator Tarr and also Representative Jones filed amendments that, so I mean, they can't think that it's that great either if they wanted to change things about it, but I just would love this to be win-win for our town, because our town has been divided enough, and this issue certainly has been contentious for everyone.
I think one of the things that I'd like to make clear is nobody loves this idea, okay?
Right.
Nobody, we don't like it, but we also recognize the futility of usually of fighting with the state and the cost that it can bring up to us. And knowing that, let's say at town meeting, it all got voted through. But then if for some reason or other, we decided we didn't like it, who's in charge of changing the zoning in this town? We are. We can go back to town meeting and zone everything back to the way it was.
You could, but I just, again, for any type of a situation where the state says it's a majority to pass, but 2/3 to, if they make it more difficult to get out of it, again, it's that.
I think if you
It's
brought a
that
good case to town meetings for a reason to get out of it, that they had really done something nefarious, that you could get the vote you need. So
I just wish it could be win-win for the whole town. That's all I'm saying. So I don't know if we can vote.
in the original proposal that we put forth, that's exactly what it looked like, a win-win. Because we didn't have to build anything, we didn't have to do anything, everything was already done. And we got preliminary approval on it, so we said, fine, this is a clean win. They didn't like it. In the letter that they gave us where they told us it was okay, they also added a line down the bottom that said, we're not really happy with this, we would prefer to have open land so that you could build. But the fact that what we presented to them met the criteria in the law meant that they approved it, that we would have had to do nothing. That's why I said if it had gone through to day one, we wouldn't even be talking about it anymore, because there'd have been no change and no impact on anybody. So, I mean, that's really the case. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. So to one of your points, Warren, you talked about the monies that the town spent. That was part of the state auditor's finding, was that it was an unfunded mandate. So that's an issue that I don't know that the select board is even dealt with yet, trying to recoup that money. I don't.
we have figures put together to submit.
Okay, so it's being worked on. The unfunded mandate portion is being worked on.
Correct.
But
Okay,
the
good.
funding of it is not,
Okay,
it's not a substantial number.
Well, so anyways, the second point was,
It's for direct costs.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, so the second, point was, Lisa, to your, when you were talking about the exemptions, there are actually, I believe, 5 towns right now. So when we first asked the question, Warren, we asked that at the very beginning. Can the town of North Reading just be exempt from this? Because we're not interested, or at the time,
No, because-
at the time, at the beginning, when the board.
We couldn't see how we were an adjacent community. We
Right,
couldn't see
right,
it.
so, but, and that was the thing, we actually, our first vote was to pass over. Very first vote as a board was to pass over it back then. If you remember, Dave, that was the very first thing that we decided for the community.
Yeah.
Was to pass over this thing. And then through the process, we worked our way through it. But my points are, we can ask for exemption. And the reason why this is important, thank you, very good point, is if we were to ask, like, say if the board were to not recommend this article, the 3 articles, and we were to ask to go for an exemption. If first of all, if the state worked with us on it, sure, why not, right? We're gonna find out a lot after July 14th. We should find out a lot.
Yeah, we may not like what
No,
we
you gotta find out.
Well, no, and that's
What
true.
are you gonna find out? Whether you're gonna get sued or not?
Yeah,
That's all you gotta find out.
yeah.
Well, that is debatable because we don't know if the state hasn't said, oh, if you don't comply by the 14th of July, we're gonna sue you. So anyway, so so we have 5 cities and towns. And when we first asked that question, Warren, when we first asked, can we be exempt? We were told the state was not entertaining any exemptions. So we, as a board, did not put forth an exemption or ask for one. At the time, we did not ask for one.
Exemption.
We were told,
When
we
we
were
were
told,
The reason we didn't, the
Adjacent.
reason we didn't ask for one is, first of all, we wanted to be sure we were in fact an adjacent community, but also the proposal that we had was a 0 impact on us. And so we didn't really see why we needed one at that point.
so, and my third point was, to Lisa's point too, is if we pass over this now, or we don't recommend this now, this will not move forward, is that correct?
Mhm.
That's correct, okay.
Well, no, the article will still move forward. The first article is different, essentially different with those amendments, so it can be considered.
But the second and third will not.
The second, and the third one can be considered.
So,
The second one, the site
so-
plan review,
if-
may not,
So those 2 amendments were,
are significant enough.
through KP Law. KP Law said that they were different enough.
Right.
Okay, that was their opinion. Yeah.
It is different enough. It's significantly different.
That was their opinion. They said it was different.
Everybody's opinion, so if you want to sue,
So-
I
so-
sue. Here, we'll
Well,
spend
no,
more money on that too.
No, so
Wait for the
anyway,
outcome.
so my point was. If the board decides not to recommend the articles. They can't be now, would that be a 2-year from now, or would it be 1 year from when it was voted from October? Like, so, but my point is, so do we, if we decide not to move forward, do we have a 1-year cushion? And we can see what happens in July and how all the other cities and towns, there's like 35 of them, how like those all, like how that all shakes out with the state? Or do we go to town meeting and have the possibility of the no be successful and then have to wait 2 more years from that to entertain this again? That's my question, Warren.
Well, the
I
2
think,
years
uh,
starts in October
Yeah,
24, right?
Yeah,
I think that's what
probably,
they're doing. So 16 more months after June meeting.
Can I understand you, please? Can I understand what you said?
You say it again.
Oh, yeah, I was just saying it starts on October. The 2 years would start on October when there was a no vote.
No, that's already started. Now you have a new petition,
Well,
No,
okay?
no, the
You have 3
two,
new petitions.
A new
it
petition.
doesn't
can
matter
come
if
up
we
with a
support
different
this or
matter.
not. I
There's
mean, if
different
we
proposals.
support it, we support it, but the 2-year clock starts in October. That's the 2-year clock. That's the no on the articles that some people are saying are the same. And whether that's the case, but whether we endorse it tonight, that's a different story. That doesn't start a new clock.
I'm more referring to town meeting.
I was too. That's the 2-year rule. It starts at the town meeting when the articles were voted on, which is October. So that from this June town meeting, it'd be another 16 months. You know,
Also, it's 2 years from the original,
from the vote.
from the vote in
From
town
the
meeting.
vote.
I got you.
The next
Okay.
vote
And that would be
doesn't
October.
apply.
Yeah, that'd be
That would be
October.
October,
Okay.
2 years on.
Now, if this gets voted down now, at this town meeting, MBTA, what happens then? You guys gonna keep beating the dead horse?
John,
I think listening to a lot of people over the last few weeks, last 2 months since I pulled papers, it seems like there is a confusion as to what we're really voting on. We are not voting for the MBTA communities law. That's law. That's happened. We're voting on how to comply with it. Not whether or not we're going to comply with it. It's how we're gonna comply with it. In the current proposal and the one that we had in October, we're complying with it in the most benign way possible. It does, as we've said, almost nothing to the community. It doesn't increase the requirements for police, doesn't increase the requirement for schooling, doesn't increase for sewage, for water, all of that is all established in a constructed property. All right, so what I've dug into is we are going to comply. It's the law. It's just a question of whether or not we comply on our own terms, or we wait for the state to come in and either sue us or, I mean, they're gonna sue us, or impose a special master. Right, they're gonna come in, some third party, not from town, from the state, is gonna come in and say, this property, these work, do it. And that's just gonna happen, so we're not talking about voting anything down. We're just voting to support the citizens petition. It's not, this is going to happen. It's gonna, for the people who don't want it to keep coming back up, vote yes. It won't come back up again. It'll be done, it'll be settled. It won't.
Not a good reason.
okay, stand by. Yes, go ahead.
Well, it's not a good reason to say, to say I'm tired of it coming back up. It's gonna keep coming back up until it's settled, either by us at town meeting on our own terms, or by a special master who comes in and says, do it this way. And we're gonna say, we don't like it that way. Well, you had your opportunity to do it your way, and you didn't. I mean, that's just the way,
The hammer comes down.
Yeah.
so to speak, right? You know,
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't know, if people be hear because my voice is kind of raspy, but I'm gonna address what you were saying, Mr. Cost.
cost, yep, Sally,
Okay,
thank you.
Mr. Cost, you say nothing's gonna change, you're saying that, in one respect, we did no voting for. We did. Here's what the vote was all about, had nothing really to do with the plan. Plan has nothing to do with this. Okay, it's about changing our bylaw to acquiesce in the state.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll just, are we changing a bylaw? Or are we just?
That's exactly what we are doing.
That's
We're putting a zoning,
And what it means
Overlay.
is, we're not changing the bylaw for a specific area. We're changing the bylaw for the whole town, includes your house, by the way, and everybody else's piece of property. They're changing for the whole town.
No, that's the ADU bylaw.
I'm sorry?
That's the ADU bylaw.
No. The bylaw that we're talking about is the bylaw that, what is it, how is it worded? I don't remember, I have to pull up the paper, I don't have that. Okay, when we voted, we had bylaw. Article 33, was it 33 that changed wanted to change the bylaw? We were voting to change the
It was in
bylaw,
the thirties, it was, yeah.
okay?
Okay.
And that's changing the bylaw for the whole town,
No,
yes. Yes, go back, research, you'll see, we were doing it for the whole town. Okay, I didn't expect them to answer this, to bring up this point, but, so we're changing the bylaw for the whole town. It doesn't say, the bylaw, even Article 1 doesn't even say this, okay? Doesn't focus on just Martin's Landing and Edgewood, okay? It's the bylaw for the whole town, which means, and I tried to make this emphasis a little at the town meeting, and people heard that message there, okay? That means the whole property, that means the state has the authority, and we lose our autonomy. Okay, we lose our autonomy as a state, as a town. Okay, so that's what the issue is. All right, it's not whether it's Martin's Landing or Kitty's property or any place else. You have to change the bylaw in order to be able to do that. Okay, the overlay comes with the Articles 2 and 3. Okay, so we have to change the bylaw in order to be able to do 2 and 3. And that's where the problem is, and that's where the issue is. It has nothing to do with the problem. You can put it in Abbott's place as far as I'm concerned. All right, it's the bylaw that you're changing, that the state has the authority to do this. And we have to acquiesce to that. And it's ironic, again, that we get to vote on this. But if you don't vote on it the way the state wants you to vote on it by changing the bylaw,
They don't claim change it.
they're gonna do it anyway. Use Abbott, the state, Abbott's property is a good example. They say, look what happened there, we thought we won, but we lost. Right? You said that.
Yep.
Okay, all right? Okay, so the state's gonna do what they want anyway, all right? So we voted down, they supersede us, okay, and then all of a sudden, they're gonna say, well, now we want it done over here, we want it done over there. And we're gonna expand this program. Okay?
We don't
State
want that-
government.
we don't want that to
moves the
happen.
goalposts every time.
We don't want it to get that far.
Okay, well, it's gonna get that far, no matter what you do.
No, I don't think
No,
so.
no, even if we vote for it, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, whether it's in your time or my time, I doubt if it's my time, okay? All right, or your time, or some people sitting in this room, it's not gonna be in our time, okay? But what's gonna happen is, down the road a piece, we are in essence turning our back on the future of the town. By going with this, that's what you do, okay? We're looking at, okay, Steve, we're looking at some money here, some pennies here, some pennies there. That's what we're looking for. Well, that's what you're looking for. Okay? You don't wanna lose those little grants. You're willing to sell the soul of the town
Oh,
just to get.
You're getting a little carried away here.
No, well, you have your exaggerations too, okay? You call up what information that we've gone it up as lies, but you don't lie. You got KP Law, who gets paid by the hour, and we all know about lawyers on the hour, they'll tell you everything you wanna know for as long as you wanna know it. And then they go over to 5 other towns and they do the other thing. They switch and they argue against the MBTA Act. So, I mean, I'm surprised that Mr. Cost didn't realize that we're changing the bylaw, because that's what we're doing. Okay, and talk about not knowing what we're doing. Unfortunately, he's new, needs to get on board with everything that's going on. That's unfortunate for us to be in that case, that situation. All right, now with the issue of being fair, I have to address Mr. Rudloff here about being fair. June of 24, there was an opportunity to vote on this. And because of babysitting issues, they moved it to the next night. And all of a sudden, I guess they couldn't get babysitters, so they had less people there, but it was approved to move it to October, so people would be more informed. Okay, I don't know how much more informed they have to be, but I'm good, okay, so we went, 6 went to CPC, and I give Mr. Rudloff and Jeff and Ed Sheen, the recognition that the information that they brought out and they put for everybody to see, of which hardly anybody ever came. Hardly anybody ever came. What'd you get, 2 people at a meeting or something like that? I know I went, I think I was the only one.
Sometimes none.
Right, okay, and then they can, well, we need to know more. People who think that they go to town meeting to find out what they need to know, that's a joke, that's an insult to all of the hard work that goes on the CPC and on the select board. Okay, that's an insult. All right, because they become ignorant and then they talk like they know a lot. Okay, so in October, it was voted down, and I would say to a 60-40 at least, was voted down. And now you're considering bringing it back, and you say you want to be fair, and you feel that they want to make an educated decision. All right. We did our work, you did your work, and they didn't show up, and you're giving them another opportunity to come out and vote on it. And they're not voting on it because they know more information. They're voting on it because somebody's telling them to do it. That's why. It's sad, but that's the facts of this scenario. What you're doing is you're turning your back by allowing this to go forward. And as chairman, now I know you're not chairman right now, I get that. But as chairman, bringing this forward, you are turning your back on 60% of the people who voted to not approve this. Rather than let the process do itself. The next opportunity they have is what, 6 to 7 months from now in October? Well, less now, right? So, they can come back in October town meeting.
Yeah.
And that would be fair.
That only
Okay,
one.
let me just point
That-
something
that-
out
Can
here,
I just
okay?
address too, because since he's
No, just,
talking.
but first, I wanna point something out to you that you seem to be missing. When you're on a board, like the select board or the planning board or any of the boards, the town depends on you to do your homework and to bring them what you think is the best
Me or them?
decision. Huh?
Me or you?
What do you
The
mean?
town depends on, are you talking about the board or are you talking about me?
Talking about the board.
Okay.
So the boards, all of the boards have a responsibility to do their homework and to find out everything they can find out. And to look the whole thing over and find out and make the best possible decision. The reason that we are even having this discussion tonight is because people that we elected to go to the state House of Representatives and the state Senate voted to make this law and hand it to us. We didn't decide it, you didn't decide it, they, as our elected officials, we appointed them, we elected them, we said, we trust you to make a good decision. This is the decision they brought us. So we have the same responsibility to look the whole thing over, and, okay, the whole process, and make a decision that we think is in the best interest of the town. It may not be obvious, maybe they saw something when they went to the House of Representatives, or they went to the state Senate, maybe they saw something good in this. But the whole group of them, all the elected officials from this state made this decision and passed it on to us. We're trying to understand it, we're trying to decide what the best thing for us to do is too. And that's the responsibility that's been put on us. So I would not let any one person tell me that you can't bring this back to the town with all the more information that you have now, with everything we've learned. We will make a recommendation based on what we've learned. I was a little tired after a while of people come to me asking where the buses were gonna stop. Those are the people that you think understood the law. Where are the buses gonna stop? Can we have a bus at Walmart? Can we have, I'm like, we're not getting buses. Well, that's what they thought this MBTA thing was. So if you think they all understood it, you may be mistaken.
I never said that, but the people at the.
If they didn't understand it, then they didn't vote correctly.
Some people in town meeting thought that.
I know
And they
they
didn't want the
they were
bus stop.
calling me up, where are the buses gonna stop?
Okay. Everything that you said is correct, that's your responsibility, and you did that.
Yeah.
And you did that.
Yeah.
Okay, the difference was you had a 4-1 vote not in support of the MBTA, and you had a 4-1 vote in support of that, okay? And you had was it 3-2? I think it might have been 3-2. On the select board, you had 3-2, and you had a 41 against, okay? All right, so you kind of, I forget the exact term, it's something about the straw, okay? About the scarecrow, the straw, and then the scarecrow. What happens is, you came back, you didn't accept it. You won't accept it, all right? And then just to
I
let you
don't think
know.
that's the
no,
answer.
you wouldn't
Well,
accept
hold
it
a minute,
because it happened. It happened.
You're telling me that I didn't accept it. What I'm telling you is that I did my homework. I looked into this to see exactly what would happen.
I know you guys
What,
did,
what the
but
best
you
thing
were
for
the
the town
one.
was.
You were the one, they were the four.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
you
yeah, I
had
was the
2
only
and a
one.
3, you had 2 and a 3, so everybody did their work, a decision was made. Are you telling me you made a mistake?
I didn't make a
You
mistake.
know, I mean, you have to, you know. you
I
have
think
to
Jeff, though,
Just follow the process, please, just follow the process of what happened. June, October, and now you're going, you may, because I don't know what your vote's going to be, I'm afraid of what it's going to be, and you're gonna bring it back again. And so that's unfair to 60% of the people who voted, and it wasn't like, town meetings can only have 150 people or 100 people, we've all been there, right? Okay, this was a fully turned out gym, it's a full gym, and people made a decision. So it wasn't a hard thing, and even Steve had to acquiesce and say, no, and turn to the moderator, we don't need to have a vote on this, we know what the result was, it was so obvious. Okay, I mean, I hope it's that way, if this comes up, I hope it's that way again, but, I think it's unfair to say to the electorate that they, even though they voted for it, you want to bring it back to the public, all right, regardless of how that vote turned out.
I don't think
And you
you're
had
giving,
that privilege.
Jeff, I don't think you're giving the people in this town enough credit. I think they're certainly smart enough, and I think they've learned a lot. It's been in the paper, they've gone to these meetings, they've all developed an opinion. And I think, the reason you go to school is to learn something, learn things, so you can make better decisions.
You just said they
That's what
weren't
we're trying
smart
to do.
enough about the buses and stuff like that. Now you're telling, now they're geniuses.
I'm saying that
They're geniuses.
I'm saying that they've learned a lot about how this all works from all this stuff. It's been in the papers, they've been seeing it on TV. I mean, they have a much better idea of what they're looking at.
So
Let me
can I-
give a couple of.
Can I just, because I think he's addressing me, so I just want to say that I think, we made a decision, and I made a decision in October, yeah, sorry, I have a cold too, like you, allergies or whatever. That it was based on the information I had. There was even a lot of talk of people wanting to push off October again until the end of the year. Let's have a special town meeting because we're gonna find out more. There's gonna be, the SGC ruling could happen before the end of the year. But I think that's, a lot of people wanted to understand where that case was going and the constitutionality of the law. And that got settled in January with their ruling. So for me to
Are you talking about Milton?
I'm talking about Milton, but in general, just talking about, we made a decision at a point of time that, and we tried to kick, as Jeff said, at first we passed over. And we went to June, and because of that whole 2-day meeting, we had to we said, we'll do it in October. Each time we did it, we tried to get more and more information. I mean, I don't know how many different things we attended and tried to find out more information. But we finally had to pull the trigger in October. And people were trying to push us to maybe, let's go to December, and we said, no, we owe the town this decision now, and let's do it. But either way, Jeff, it was based on information that we had. And so up to this point right now, I have more information, and the same people, and I'm taking that risk of that, and I agree, it was 60-40 at least, if not more. But that's people, I think I'm in that 60 group back then that were using the information that they had at the time. And now we have more information, and I feel, and part of that information is just the reality too. It's the practical reality that the town is including, the state is including all discretionary types of grants. Even the Fed is getting involved with the DEP and everything. And they're putting in that caveat that you need to be compliant with the mass state law. That to me, it's a threat. But it's a valid threat, and if we're all old enough to know the way the state works, it's gonna work. And so there's no question anymore that this is a valid law, and what the state can do to the town. So I'm just being practical. But back to allowing people to vote, I just think it is the fair thing, instead of letting just 4 or 5 people make that decision. I prefer that we endorse the citizens petition and allow the rest of the town, whoever wants to show up, to vote for this and not just have it stand with four or 5 people here. We're just volunteers, Jeff, you know what I mean? I don't feel
No, I know
comfortable
that.
making that decision for the whole town. And
That's
that's,
what you're elected to do. and something.
I agree with
And
that,
this is-
but
You're just extending it to October of next year.
yeah,
That's really
so,
what you're doing.
well, I mean, there is a compliance deadline, so that's one. And secondly, for all the people that just try to simplify this process, like you voted no already, but I've said it before, this is an unprecedented law. There hasn't been anything like this for 50 years. 1975 was the zoning act and a 3A, and that was a big deal back then, but it wasn't anything sweeping like that. Only probably 6 or 8 years before was the 40B. So you have major zoning changes that were 50, 60 years ago. We haven't had anything. So no planning board in all the 350 towns in Massachusetts haven't had to deal with this issue. And it's a big one, and I agree with you. And it's offensive to, and everyone agrees they don't like the law, because it's offensive to towns, I think. And it's offensive specifically to planning boards that say, we don't have the grace, we don't have the judgment to allow an application to come to us that involves multifamily, that we can't look at it with fair minds and say, yeah, that's a good plan here. What, can you maybe do this? Can you maybe do that? The state doesn't trust us, the towns, enough, and the planning boards enough, so that they have to create a law to override us and go right by us. Now, think about that. I think that's pretty awful. And that is my position today, and it won't change about this law. But we have to be practical as far as about complying with this law, and that's where I'm at. I'm holding my nose, Jeff. I'm holding my nose, but I think the town should have the right to vote for this, not just 4 or 5 people. That's my position, and I've told you that, and I know you know it. So we've had this discussion before. And I respect your advocacy for the other side, I really do. But I just feel like, you know, we have to comply. I hope that helps.
Say to you, and I appreciate your comments, just to say to you, my advocacy isn't for the other side, my advocacy is for the town.
No, for the town,
It's for the
and
town.
I'm glad you say
I'm
that.
only concerned
That's what I
about the
mean, that's what I mean.
Okay, I mean, in reality, I'll be someplace else in the condo in Riverside. Riverside.
Paris.
But it is,
That's densely populated too, okay? That's high density, that's a high density neighborhood.
well, don't do an overlay on that. So,
You're right.
now, what would you do, my question to you is this, what would you do if this is approved? Okay, if a citizen's petition was brought forward to you to challenge that, would you? Select board.
We listen to it, we would listen to it, I mean, you know, with everybody, I mean, that citizen petition is a right everybody in town has.
Because you're creating a never-ending story is what I'm bringing in. Okay, because we brought it up and it passed, and then they. bring it
No,
back
it's
and it passed.
whack-a-mole. I mean, this is
So,
not going
that's
anywhere.
exactly what it is. Okay, I mean, I have a lot more to say, but I don't want to take up the.
Yeah, I'd like to get.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes,
Nope, I think Dave answered the
Oh.
point, so I'm done.
okay, yeah,
Hi, Elizabeth Rymel, 1 Williams Road. I think I understand. So we, back in 2017 or whatever, the planning board and the town was smart enough to create multifamily. It will stay multifamily based on the questions Mr. Griffin asked, and I think Ms. Spillmore asked. The number of units would remain the same no matter which way we go.
Right.
Sprawl wise, which I think is what you were talking about, more acreage, that won't happen. But there was
Well-
still,
Excuse me one
there
second.
isn't more acreage, because by the time you take the unusable acreage out of that, it's just barely what we need. Pretty much.
Okay, so my fear with that was that state, if their appetite is to move the goalpost, regardless of whatever's going on, even whatever the land is, and the land won't do it. If the state's appetite is there, they'll change it. That's my point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, but
Well,
that's a good point, because I think, number of units kind of addresses the height, the buildability kind of addresses the width. But I know, Pat had mentioned stuff about adding bedrooms and stuff, and I have never owned a condo. I have never had a homeowners association, so I don't know as a homeowner right now, like, is my contract, my deed for specifically say for a 1 bedroom?
So you have a 1 bedroom and you wanna know what your deed is?
If I have a 1 bedroom.
Yeah.
Could I make it a 2 bedroom? What would I
Probably
have
not,
to
because
do?
the contract, when you bought contract that you signed, at Barnes Landing, it has certain restrictions, covenants in it.
And
if
those covenants are governed by,
they're governed by the association when
That's what I
when
wanted
it's
to
all
know.
developed.
okay,
Not by the town, like Steve said, not by the town, not by the state, but by the owners. They develop and they do that because they don't want something like that to happen.
okay,
And
that's,
since there are those covenants exist and you signed on to them, and swore that you wouldn't violate them, then you can't make those changes. You'd be in violation and,
Yeah. I was just trying to simplify
what
what
the penalty
Pat
is.
talked to.
To your point, good morning, through you. So what she's getting at is that in an overlay, because that's, I think, where she's going with
Yeah.
this. The 3A doesn't supersede all that stuff you just talked
The
about.
contract, no, can't. Can't.
But that's for Martin's Lane.
No, any place.
And-
But
So similar to the ADU, sure, I own a piece of property and I now could build an ADU, but I don't want to, so
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah, that's the thing
Okay.
excites me, that ADU bylaw is over the entire town and yet they just act like it didn't happen.
well, that's good, because don't tell them about it.
Yeah,
No.
So if it helps,
I'm sorry, you go ahead.
If it helps clarify, the Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, which is the governing party over this
Right.
law, has explicitly stated section 3A does not override private property rights or private deed restrictions.
Truly.
It's a flat statement they've made.
Today.
And all we can
Well,
do is
here's
work
the
with the
thing.
information we had today. It's more now than we had last fall.
Here's the thing that people keep overlooking. The state could do that today. If they could do it, they could do it today, but they can't, so they won't do it today and they won't do it tomorrow. Because they cannot override the legal contracts that you have. They can't do that. But if they could do that, they could do that today. This one doesn't mean anything to them. Whether we have this, whether we're compliance or not compliance. They could still have that option, so, yeah.
I just wanted to follow up on a question that was raised earlier. 30 acres were excluded according to the state's regulations from what we were allowed to count as developable acreage. So even though our district would be 80 acres, only 30 of it, 80 minus 30, so 50 of it would be considered developable by the state. And one of the reasons for that is that the property is both properties are very severely restricted by the Aquifer Protection District. Currently, by right, there is no way to build, to expand the footprints of what's already built on those two sites there, which is why it would be so difficult to actually add any more.
So basically, it's where we are.
If you make too much, she said that was what, 79 acres?
She has more questions.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to get clarification on what she just said.
oh, okay,
Okay, they said it's the property, Edgewood and Martin's Landing is 79 acres,
Yes.
okay? And there are 30 acres that don't count,
They-
right? So
they-
that means that brings us down to 49.
No, that's not how it works. The state has a requirement that we have at least 50 acres. We meet that with having 79 acres. They also tell us how much of that is considered to be developable for purposes of figuring out how many units it could possibly yield. They have a formula where we get rid of all excluded land. So you can have a 50-acre property that only has 25 developable, but they'll still let you count the 50. My point is just that those 30 acres can't be developed.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
so I just wanted to finish up and say that, one, I'm totally in agreement with you that if we could come to some, I had hoped that we would come to some compromise, but and I would have been here to support a different law or proposal if you would put one forth. I very much appreciated your discussion when you considered the Main Street properties. That was an excellent conversation. I totally understand why you went the way you did. So thank you for doing that. But I moved from my October concerns to having all this information now to say, yes, let's bite the bullet, let's go for it. I encourage your support. I serve on as a volunteer on a board, and you know, again, sometimes you have to put aside your personal opinion because you have sworn to uphold state law. And if this is a state law, we need to come up with a plan that helps the town meet it. So I hope that you vote to recommend.
Thank you. That is true. When we're elected, we do put our hand up and swear to uphold the state laws. So you have a,
Just, there's a hand up on the Zoom. That's Jeff G. That's not you. Or is it? I don't know. There's.
No, I always write my full name.
Oh, okay.
So that's just another really cool guy with a real.
I'm not sure you're going to agree with that after you hear what I have to say, but thank you. First, wanted to thank Mr. O'Leary for the work he did and for the information he gave. That was really helpful. I was wondering if I could maybe get a 30-second summary from Danielle, because I followed this pretty closely, but apparently I haven't the past few months. I thought back in the fall, there was a potential that like up to around 150 units could be added to the site as proposed. Did the plan change, or did something change to where now 0 units can be added since then?
Before I answer your question, if you wouldn't mind, just give us your full name and your address for the record.
Absolutely. Sorry. Jeff Gannon, 3 Linwood Avenue.
Thank you. So in October, the proposal was to submit the zoning amendment as it was written had the potential, as this citizen's petition does, to raise the allowed height by half of a story. There was speculation about how many units could potentially be added to the existing buildings or through reconstruction. This time around, the citizen's petition contains another provision that was not present in the fall, and that is a cap on the number of units that can be allowed on the site at any given time. That cap is 908, and 908 is the exact number of units that have currently been permitted for that site. So if you can't exceed that cap of 908 units, in reality, there is no way to put more on that site than is currently there. It could be in a different configuration, it could be in a different shape, it could be a different, slightly different heights and footprints, but if the cap is on there for 908, then 908 can't be exceeded. So that is the major difference between this citizen's petition and what was voted in October.
Okay, thank you, and apologies for not keeping up close enough, but that was helpful. Hopefully some other people are getting that information as well. Back then and now, I was in support of adopting this. I think some multifamily housing wouldn't be a bad thing for this community. I know there can be arguments about what type and all that, but it's a good way to generate tax revenue and not necessarily overburden services the way that some single family development would do. So just to touch on a few things, I don't think it's that the state doesn't trust us. It's because we have a housing crisis, and this proposal is a way to grow smart near transit-oriented communities. And so we're not going to be able to help with that with this proposal. But even though I would support it, I've heard people from the town, and I think Mrs. McKnight did a nice job with the planning, and we're really meeting what the town wants for a law that we need to comply with. I think Mr. Griffin, your comment on proposed zoning change to Mr. O'Leary's notes and the concerns, was just not necessary. It's a spin. Of course, they oppose it for the reasons that were listed. Okay, so I don't understand why we wasted 10 minutes of our time talking about that. They've been met, Mr. O'Leary made that clear, and there's been other things brought up about adding to the apartments or splitting up the apartments. It's not going to happen. I'm an architect. I work for a developer. If these buildings were 40 years old, maybe, but they're brand new. They're getting good rents, and that is good for the people who own it. The cost to purchase this and change it doesn't make sense. The cost to disrupt the tenants that are in there paying good rent is not worth it. There are also building code restrictions to going up and doing other divisions that cost a lot of money if you want to make them happen, if they're even possible, allowed by the building code. So I just think there's a lot of information out there that is getting spun that isn't really based in a lot of fact and reality, even more than fact. So I think for the town that, we heard at the meeting, not wanting the growth, we're not going to get it. And that's been made clear. So for me, although I'd like to see us help the housing crisis, I think what has come up is a very good proposal, and it's not worth turning down grants that are there right now or future grants that could depend on this. That's one thing that I think we need to think about is, yes, there's certain things on the table and some we won't be eligible for because of, how affluent we may or may not be. But there's going to be other grants down the line, and we're going to drag this out, potentially have legal costs. I really don't think it's worth it, and urge the board to bring this before the town and support having this passed. I think that's really it. But again, thank you for all the efforts you've put in over the many months to get here.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
If I could, Warren,
Yes.
only because my name was mentioned.
You just
So-
like the spotlight, that's all.
Yeah, it's just so much fun. I love volunteering. I really do, actually.
That was insulting.
So, to your point, Jeff, you said you're an architect, is that correct? You
That
still
is
there?
correct. Yep,
Okay.
I am an architect.
Yeah, I'm just curious, are you working or have you worked on any overlay projects?
Yes, I'm sure I have. I've been practicing for 20 years.
Okay, so you understand how an overlay works as far as adding additional bedrooms, correct?
That's a little generic. I think you'd have to be more specific for me to answer it.
I think that's pretty blunt, actually. So my point is, I'm just trying to get at is, I think and we know that you can add a bedroom without changing the footprint. And that's what the concern is with you. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, let me respond then. Mr. Griffin, do you know how big a bedroom has to be in order for it to be counted as a bedroom, used as a bedroom?
I do.
70 square feet.
7 by 10.
Thank you, Mr.
70.
Rudolph. You're correct. 7 by 10, it needs a window. So it's not just you can just throw a wall in there and you add a bedroom. Okay, it needs other provisions and meets minimums. So what I'm saying is we can't just throw out theories. All right, it's not fair to do that. It's not honest to do that.
It's happening. It's happening all over Boston. It is a reality. It's
Yeah, but
the developers are doing this. This is
I
happening.
agree, it could happen to those other properties, but. I
Right,
think
but that's all my point was,
Yeah.
Dave. That's all I was trying to say.
Yeah, that's, and I think what Jeff points out
Yeah.
too.
If someone does something illegal, that you can't put that on like the town, like, oh, the town voted for it. It's their fault because we knew the developers were going to do something illegal. That's ridiculous.
No, Jeff, nobody's
That's-
find that out. I was just
No,
saying
come
that.
on.
All right, that's enough. That's.
Yeah, I just want to point out, because it answers like what you raised, Jeff, is the exterior, the envelope to add a window, say at Martin's Landing or something, so that you could add a 70 square foot bedroom and you need a window for egress, a second means of egress. It's very highly impractical. And then again, I think that's not your property. The envelope is not your property in a condo
Right,
building like that. So again, it's very highly improbable. And it'd be very expensive to start adding fenestration to a building that already has all that stuff, so I mean.
Because of the restrictions and it's virtually
Yeah.
impossible.
But at the same time, just to be fair, what Jeff's referring to, there are cases and they're, you know, they can go into buildings, they've got them and they just put in a lot, but they'll still have the same restrictions. They need to have the window, the ventilation, electrical, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the code provides for a 70 square foot.
But they're doing it, Dave, and that's my point.
No, I get it. I'm
It's
just
being
saying.
done, that's all I'm saying.
But that 70 square feet has been in the Mass General Code for like building. code
7 by 10, you got a window, you're good.
I know, and
I
I'm
know,
just saying.
I think it's ridiculous too.
But that's not, it's not, but this is not new.
Yeah.
I just said a
That's-
while ago that
It's
this
old
could
school.
happen, whether we do this or not, you could still run into those situations. There's nothing to do with this. And I still don't know where the buses are going.
There is no bus. We have no service.
What? No buses?
What?
I know. I
Keep
know.
waiting.
Okay, did anybody else, because we would like to move along to anything new, anybody got something new? No hands? Okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing then, and I thank you all very much for coming. In discussing this, and I of course believe we need to move along. And like Dave, I think we really owe it to the town with all the new information there is, and I think there's some reading between the lines that needs to happen. But what the town's been saying in the last few weeks, so, I think yes,
There's a motion to vote a recommendation if you would like to do that.
I'm sorry?
There's a motion to
Yeah,
vote
I
a
know that, yeah.
recommendation if you would like to.
You want to read it?
Yes,
I have it.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
So is discussion closed, Warren?
yeah.
Okay. I just wanna be clear.
Well, I closed the public
Because
hearing, so
the whole-
discussion with the public is, the public is closed.
Okay. So it's closed to public. Okay, I just, a couple other points too.
Well, pretty.
I'm gonna make it quick. I'm gonna make it quick.
Okay.
So you say, you know, you ask for us to do, to represent the people and to do our job, right? So we do. We're always looking for more information, and I have done that.
Mhm.
And as of right now, there are 77 towns that are interim, just like us.
Yeah.
There are 23 towns that have failed, just like us. And I think that's important to know, because there are a lot of towns, just like us, that are sitting in a waiting, in a holding pattern, and they also wanna see, but I guess that's just my point, just because I think numbers matter. You know, I think that matters, so,
But I think each situation is different, and you know, my mother used to tell me, if Joe jumps off the bridge, it doesn't mean you do it.
my mother told me the same thing too.
All right.
She did, she did. Anyway, so that's just some of the things that there are right now still as we discuss this and,
Okay, I just want to give you an opportunity to
Thank you.
comment, but I
Thank
didn't
you.
want to do comments that didn't give the public a chance to respond, so thank you.
yep.
Okay.
Okay, so citizens to do the zoning bylaw amendments. Okay, I have to do this. Multifamily overlay 100 and 104. Well, okay, I move that the CPC vote to recommend, not recommend, pass over / other. The article to
We have to
town,
pick one.
I understand that, to town, I'm reading it exact to town meeting.
Okay.
Do you want a second, and then actually the roll calls will.
No,
pick what we do.
well, there's no, it gave all three
Right,
options.
that's what I mean, well, that's what I was gonna,
So we
roll
need
call
to,
to,
So we have the option to recommend,
okay.
not
all right.
recommend, pass
All
over.
right, we can do it that way.
Yeah. Second that motion.
Okay, second, it's okay.
Oh.
So I'm gonna call for roll call.
Yeah, and Max is on too.
Pardon?
Max is also on.
Okay.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, so, yeah.
Hey, Max.
Howdy. I vote to support and recommend.
Recommend, okay. Max?
I vote to support and recommend.
Okay.
Recommend.
And Jeff?
Not recommend.
Okay, and I recommend, so that's 4 in favor and 1 opposed. And we do the zoning bylaw too.
Yeah, we do all three, so that
Okay,
was
well-
for the first one, the Lowell Road District.
And thank you, Jeff, for reading this one.
You want me to read the second one?
Please.
You should do a motion for each one.
Yeah, okay, I move that the CPC vote to move. I wrote this wrong. I move that the CPC vote to
I did it twice, just,
move,
I moved that to CPC vote to and then recommend.
I move that the CPC vote to recommend, not recommend, pass over other article town meeting with site plan review.
John,
I vote to support and recommend.
okay,
You
and
second.
Max?
Oh, you second it?
Yeah, I'm second. No,
Okay,
Debbie,
okay, so John, you will recommend, Max?
Support and recommend.
I vote to support and recommend.
Okay, Dave,
recommend.
and I recommend, and Jeff,
Not recommend.
okay. Let the record show 4 in favor, 1 opposed.
Okay, I move that the CPC vote to recommend, not recommend, pass over other article town meeting of the zoning map update.
Second that.
Okay, John,
I vote to support and recommend.
Max,
Recommend.
Dave,
Recommend.
Jeff,
Not recommend.
and I recommend, so that 4 in favor and 1 opposed. So that sends it off to the select board.
It's fixes for town meeting,
Yeah.
right? So it won't be printed on the warrant, but it will be, the vote will be, you know, you'll tell town meeting this is how you voted.
Again, Mr. Chairman, again, thank you very much for the further consideration and offering the opportunity to the taxpayers and voters of North Reading to come into compliance. I would hope that the planning commission would do more than just get up and say, we voted for to want to recommend. I would hope again that some sort of presentation with the details provided by the planner would be provided, the information would be provided to the voters, for more information, because certainly there's more resources are here.
Yeah. Steve, I want to thank you very much for bringing all the information and putting the time into this. You've done a great job. And,
Again, I didn't do anything but add a couple of amendments. Danielle and you people did the job.
well, I do believe that in the end, again, if this all goes through a town meeting in 3 months, nobody would even remember it, because it has no impact on it. So, I mean, just, other than it puts us in compliance, that's all.
And so again, thank you very much. And, yeah, I think it's a positive step.
If I get my way, we're gonna get a couple of buses. We're not paying for this one, no.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks.
Need a motion.
No, we don't.
We're not done yet?
I don't know. Are we all set here, Danielle?
I think so. Are we done with the agenda? I think so.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
we are.
I think that's all we have for today.
Okay, you can make a motion to adjourn if you like. We don't, we have.
Make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Sure. Second grade.
Second.
Let's get that one.
All in favor?
Aye.